You're on camera. Say something.
Last night and night before, there was 3 women walking down the street that way. I saw them. I said, hey, you 3 women, why are y'all walking down the street that way? There's nothing down there. And they flew away. I saw them with some birds.
Time Raider! Look at the world! Spinning so blind. He cracked the code, wired the grind. Told you what's next, map the design. Late to the game, he's ahead of your time. Eyes wide shut while he saw through the smoke. Y'all laughed it off, but the guy's no joke. Truth hit hard, left the doubters broke. Every call he made is the master stroke. Called it again. Are you listening? He's got the spark, yeah, he's glistening. Future's on lock, man, he's blistering. Told you what's coming, now it's christening. Called it again. Are you missing it? Pinpoint shot, every hit legit. World's in his hand, man, he's twisting it. Bow to the king, he's the infinite. Called it. Yo, rewind the tape. Forecast so clean it escapes the hate. This ain't no luck, this is fate. Create while you hesitate. He dominates.
Could be Trump. Yeah. Trump. Oh yeah. Trump. 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 Could be Trump. Yeah. Trump. Oh yeah. Trump.
I was not very steeped in the comics.
I didn't read any comics or do any research.
I wasn't familiar with comics. I wasn't familiar with the movies.
We didn't lean into a whole lot of the history of the comic books.
Yeah, candidly, we were not enormous comic fans.
I wasn't super into superhero comics when I was a kid. I read a lot of like indie press stuff.
First thing I was told is don't read the comics.
Really?
As a creator, they put you in a bubble. They don't let you talk about any of the other projects, right?
You know, they're up for anything.
We ultimately decided to redefine it for the series and thought that it worked better for the story that we're trying to tell.
Did you ever read you've never read the comic?
When the DVD comes out, I'm going to read a Thor comic book and just see where we went wrong.
Like, oh yeah. Holy shit.
Jesus. Oh my god.
Sit around thinking the same shit.
I can't breathe. I gotta stop looking at it. 1,000-year throne, now a brand on a check. They carving up shrines, cashing respect. Suits in the palace, hands in the grave. Turning traditions to minimum wage. You touching the past with them corporate hands. Blood on the stones where the dynasty stands. Ain't no reset, no save, no code. You taking what's sacred and turning it cold. Burn their gold, break their chains. They crush the past, we bring the flames. Armor stolen, honor remains. Corporate gods gon' feel the pain. Yasuke moved like a shadow in war. Steel on his back, kicked in the door. Took what they swore was untouchable cloth. Imperial chains ain't holding him off. Yo, foreigner hands in the emperor's gear. That's blasphemy. Whisper the fear, but who's the villain? Who's the thief? The one that takes or the one that deceives? Turn culture currency, played it like stocks. Sold off the names, put gates on the locks. They buried the truth, but roots run deep. A nation don't die just cause emperors sleep. Burn their gold, break their chains. They crush the past, we bring the flames. Armor stolen, honor remains. Corporate gods gon' feel the pain.
When the last bell tolls, when the dust is clear, who speaks for the ghosts they silenced here? Not while we stand.
It's time to level up. Get that firepower. We taking it all. Yeah. Boots on the ground. I'm running this race. Rick Buster with the knuckles. No time to waste. Through the mushroom fields where the wild things grow. Jumping higher than the clouds. Let the energy flow. Never fold. Never break. Every step I take, I make the ground quake. Big shell creeping. He's the king of the crawl. But I'm built for the heat. I'm taking it all. Keep pushing through the hills, never back, never fall. It's a battle every step, but I'm taking it all. Fire in my soul, yeah, I'm breaking the walls. No matter what it takes, I'm saving it all. Bang, bang, samurai hero. Dodging swords with his outlaw flow. Bang, bang, samurai hero. No respect to show, no fate to bestow. Bang, bang, samurai hero. Stealing wheels while the firelights glow. Bang, bang, samurai hero. Yasuke West, just watch him go. Watch him go. From a land across the sea, he came with a dream. Sengoku chaos, but he's got a new scheme. No bow, no blade, just a P226. A samurai, no, he's a gunfighting prick. Honor is dead when the bullets fly. He claims he's a savior, but we all ask why. On a bicycle, Yasuke the wall riding legend. Tequila Clan stealing the credits. Bang, bang, samurai hero. Dodging swords with his outlaw flow. Bang, bang, samurai hero. No respect to show, no fate to bestow. Bang, bang, samurai hero. Stealing wheels while the firelights glow. Bang, bang, samurai hero. Yasuke West, just watch him go. Watch him go.
Yo, yo, Snoop Shoot K on the mic. This one for all my time disgraced geisha bitches. Yeah. No, we back in the day, 16th century, Sengoku era, straight feudal energy. Samurai on the rise, Ganyo in the mix. Oda, Tokugawa fixing conflicts quick. Ninja creeping in the shadows, silent and swift. Castles fortified, loyalties to give. Bushido gold, honest in the heart. Blades clashing, battlefields the art. Sengoku
Before we begin, what do you think of my totally accurate samurai attire, right? Long ago, in a distant thread, I didn't give a fuck. But a foolish voice actor wielding a QWERTY keyboard stepped forth and insisted that I should. Barbara, thanks, but I don't give a fuck. Barbara, thanks, but I don't give a fuck. Thanks, but I don't give a fuck.
Rescue soldier! Through the cosmic tide we soar, bound by duty and ready for more. No shadow can outshine our flame. On the front lines we stake our claim. Hearts ignited, fearless and true. Charging forward, breaking through. Burning horizon, blazing fast. Racing through the stars, unsurpassed. On the edge where legends collide. Together we fight, side by side.
Ladies and gentlemen, over the years, Bounding's brought you a myriad of content, but nothing quite like this. We're proud to present a brand new program about love, honor, glory, sacrifice, and a whole lot of unnecessary explosions. BattleMax champions are ready! BattleMax challengers are ready! Let's go!
Bounding Battle Max! Bounding Battle Max! Bounding Battle Max!
Face every challenge, climb every wall. Catch your breath, but never let it fall. Power and honor light up your way. Legends are born today. Run to the light, fight for the glory. Show them your might, write your own story. Run to the light, fight for
So, if you don't know, there's been a lot of Tokusatsu celebration in Japan. If you don't, or if you're not aware, rather, we just recently had the Kamen Rider 50th anniversary. Now this year we are having the Super Sentai 50th anniversary. So over in Japan, there's a bit of a celebration of it going on, as it's kind of a landmark franchise for the country, cultural, if you will. It's a bit of a cultural landmark, if you will, not a physical one. Not like the Gundam statues, but I'm sure someday you'll see some, Super Sentai giant robot out front of an airport in Japan somewhere. They love that stuff. So there we go. But what's been interesting is the previous actors themselves, much like Johnny Young Bosch, if you recall, he's the guy who does the voice for Ichigo from Bleach. Johnny Young Bosch originally started his career on Power Rangers. There's a famous story about Johnny being in a Texas karate school as a teacher, and the sensei, the guy that ran the dojo, brought an advertisement in the newspaper. By the way, this is a nationwide casting call to replace Walter Jones. Just so you know, the Black Ranger. This was a nationwide casting call to do that. And Johnny Young Bosch tells the story of being like, well, I don't act, I just do kung fu and that kind of thing. And his the boss of the dojo was like, no, you should go try it. And what do you know? So many years later, after learning the ropes on Power Rangers, we've got Johnny Young Bosch being arguably the king of voice acting in America. I don't know anybody else that rises to the kind of filmography as that guy. You got guys like Sean Schmegel, whatever you want to call him. We call him Sean Smegma around here, the voice of Goku. You got Chris Sabat, the guy that does Vegeta and All Might. But when it comes to like raw voice acting, like in stuff, it's up to Stephen Blum and Johnny Young Bosch. It's the two of those guys that kind of reign supreme over American voice acting. So it's pretty cool when you find out the roots of it is in Power Rangers. And much like that, we have the cameos in Red Ranger Isekai, as you can see right here. And believe it or not, these are the Go Busters from Super Sentai Go Busters. They were super spies in that one, and that they were kind of like a 007 fighting real life viruses. I think that's how that worked. They were like the manifestation of computer viruses that came through. I think that's how that worked. I might be getting Power Rangers Beast Morphers mixed up with that. I might a little bit. But in Red Ranger Isekai, as you can see, there's quite a few people here that are gathered. And this is something of like a world where all of the Super Sentai and Tokusatsu things exist alongside each other. We saw the Aquarian robot show up in one of these episodes as well. So it's an interesting time to be a Tokusatsu and anime fan. We have more of these, by the way. These, of course, are anime-ified versions of previous Super Sentai actors. This is Deca Pink and Deca Yellow here. Anime-atized, if you will. And then, of course, these are characters I don't quite recognize. I don't know the chef one. I'm sure that's a very popular meme in Japan of a Super Sentai hero pretending to be a chef, but I don't recall it. And, of course, we have, if you don't remember, this is the guy in the meme that's with the police officer sits up and says, "Today is Friday," and in California, and he shoots at the camera. And this is the character that goes, "What?" and tries to run away. Then, of course, here is, I believe that is Time Yellow. I think that's who that is opposing him. So again, littered with all of these. There's also Kamen Riders in the background. We have Kamen Rider Agito back here in the background. So it's pretty cool how Red Ranger Isekai is sort of celebrating everybody who wears a helmet to save the day. And it's pretty neat to see that come through. We also have a few other tributes going on. Toshiki Inoue, I think I said that right, is a writer for the Kamen Rider series. He's most famous for all of his contributions to the original Kamen Rider and all the way up through. I think he's most infamous for what he did in Kamen Rider Super. And that's where they crucified the Kamen Rider and lit him on fire. And what do you know? Right here is a tribute to that in the episode that he wrote, by the way. He wrote this Red Ranger Isekai episode. I think it's the episode that after the introduction of the cat girl, as you can see here on the left-hand side. So he's most famous again for this scene where they lit the Kamen Rider on fire, and he was not beloved for that for a very, very long time. And now, 50 years some odd later, he's posing with Don Momotaro, who is the avatar, if you will, of the Japanese spirit. And it's pretty cool to see this guy celebrated after such a long time of being absolutely hated by the Super Sentai crew. So I don't know. It's a little bit of trivia to kind of get us off the ground here, because we do have a lot to talk about. Sakura Mita did quite a bit of deep dive on what's going on with the Hasbro Playmates partnership. Went ahead and collected this information for us to talk about today. And what's important to remember about all this is that arguably right now, Power Rangers is a dead franchise, okay? You look out the window, Not a lot of spandex-clad, helmet-wearing heroes out there because, again, it just didn't seem to be something that caught on beyond Power Rangers here in the United States. Hasbro, Saban, Disney did not own the complete copyright control of people wearing helmets and spandex. Did not have that power. The only thing they had the power to control was wearing something on your wrist and calling it a morpher when you weren't a Power Ranger, and of course, the name. That's all they truly had copyright control over. They didn't even have copyright control over combining robots, because of course, that's Transformers as well, and Voltron. And then they didn't have copyright control over 5 people jumping into that robot to control it, because again, that's Voltron. The only thing they had the power to control was the thing on the wrist. But American corporations saw the success of Power Rangers and said, nah. I don't know why, but that's kind of how it panned out. Saban still to today was the most experimental with Tokusatsu footage from Japan of any of the media companies that got a hold of it. So just bear in mind, again, this is not as celebrated as it is in Japan, like I was just talking about. Power Rangers is entirely its own corner of entertainment. It barely overlaps into anything else, despite all the references made to it. So we'll get into it. Right now, Playmates wants, they're putting together plans to put out toys that go all beyond the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series. Now, as a fan of the franchise that didn't get on with Mighty Morphin, I picked up in Space. That was the new season when I was, brain had turned on, a little kid brain had turned on into like adolescent brain. And so Mighty Morphin just doesn't have a special place in my heart whatsoever. Tommy's cool. Everybody thinks Tommy's cool, but Andros is the guy for me. My like childhood and his are semi-similar. So, I didn't have Dark Honda come and kidnap my sister, but it was pretty similar to what happened. And then in adulthood, meeting again and that being not so great, I had a lot to share with Andros. And so it's really cool to hear that maybe, just maybe, a complete in-space toy line might come out. Wow, wouldn't that be crazy? I don't think that's happened since the show was on the air as a brand new show, huh? Wouldn't it be nuts to get more than just the Red Ranger of any season? Wouldn't that be great? Or just some random Yellow Ranger they thought would be neat because they had too much yellow paint left over or something? So that's what's happening here, is that Playmates stepped back from the Disney and Hasbro and Neo Saban obsession with Mighty Morphin and said, hey, there might be more people that would be interested in this franchise if maybe we acknowledged more than one instance of that franchise existing. So that's helpful, right? Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want who doesn't want to be acknowledged, that you exist out here, that you're not into Mighty Morphin, but you're into the rest of the franchise. This is one of the things that killed the franchise, was the hyper focus on the Mighty Morphin team. People often compare Power Rangers to Transformers or to G.I. Joe, but you have to remember, those franchises rely on a central cast of characters that never change. Power Rangers, as a franchise, has 28 different teams, okay, spread across 30 years. Arguably, that's a lot different, right? So it relied more on the recognition of man in helmet as opposed to, giant robot that is now a Peterbilt 18-wheeler. That's Optimus Prime. I got it. That it works a bit different. Recognizing that Duke and Scarlet and Snake Eyes are the main 3 of the G.I. Joe franchise is much different than, say, 2 seasons of Jason and Tommy competing for leadership of a team. It's not the same. And ultimately what killed this franchise was the obsession with Mighty Morphin. You, as a fan of Mighty Morphin, may feel differently, but the reality of that is that the franchise kept going. One of the reasons why Disney bought it was because it was so versatile. You could take Power Rangers anywhere you wanted to go. You remember Mystic Force? They were out here doing rap in the intro. People absolutely hated that, and it was just Power Rangers Harry Potter at the end of the day. When it came down to what it actually was it was like Power Rangers Harry Potter. And again, it was Disney's attempt to cash in on that craze at the time. But Power Rangers possesses that ability to go from 5 teenagers with attitude in California hanging out at Ernie's juice bar to a bunch of amateur wizards hanging out in a tree trunk with a weird old witch that her husband's an evil wolf knight. It's the capability of this franchise, and what killed it was like this obsession with 5 teenagers with attitude in California when it had so many other places to go. Lost Galaxy was quite literally about human space exploration, and yet, fuck that. We can't talk about that. Kids don't care about space. They care about dinosaur robots and floating heads in tubes. Spencer's here, I think.
Only MMPR, only forever, only thing we will ever get for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, for eternity, the absolute eternity of it. But that's being broken by Playmates. They have officially confirmed that they will not be hyper-focusing on MMPR. Yes, this first wave is MMPR, because again, the first of the franchise here in the US. So of course, they went and pushed it into who else out there would be interested in this franchise. So pretty cool.
No, I'm genuinely surprised by that. Yeah, because they, as is listed in the article from the Montyverse's reporting, this is, like Cider said, Wave 1 is MMPR, but they did say we're getting more, and it is. I'm just genuinely shocked, and I won't believe it until I see it. You know what I mean? Like,
right?
Does more, because this is my fear, Cider, is like more waves or whatever that suggests like you'll get the second like set of MMPR Rangers, even though it's like the same guys, right? Like you'll get Rocky and you'll get Aisha and Kat, and then they'll do like the movie Rangers, and then they'll kill the set there.
Yeah, well, see, that's a good possibility, because again, they have to do something with the Ninjetti. They either have to show them in the Ninjetti costumes or do something where they put the center coin on their chest like they did in the movie, you know? They'll have to do that.
I didn't realize like they stopped putting the emblem coins on the figure chests. Like I don't know when they did that, but they used to do that, even though that's not what it is. Like that's not what it is on the suits.
It was when Hasbro took over.
Oh,
Bandai did it. Bandai did it because that's where it started.
Crazy.
They had all the
had
all the prints still. Hasbro had to come up with their own stuff. They didn't buy all that from Bandai.
That makes sense. It's
so
kind of
Hasbro
like having the coins on the chest.
Odds are they'll be back with Wave 2, because in the way the show worked is that Wave 2 had the emblems. So you might be right in that regard, that they're going to evolve it very slowly. But again, I think they've picked out the winners.
Fear. Like that's just like my inherent fear as like a trauma PTSD Power Rangers fan at this point. I'm hopeful.
But you're not alone.
I'm very hopeful.
We've got Ironcaster here, and he says, yes, I've gotten so sick of how Power Rangers as a series practically worships the MMPR era. Yep. That's, again, it's a terrible thing to say, right? I have to acknowledge it's a terrible thing to say, but the passing of Jason David Frank really allowed this franchise to fully separate from Mighty Morphin if they wanted to.
Oh, 100%.
There's the opportunity here. Maybe Playmates is seeing that, and they're trying to demonstrate to Hasbro that, like, maybe you should do something other than 5 teenagers with attitude. Look at everything else, you know? Maybe they're trying to do that because, again, Chris Cox hates this franchise. So, we do have Bowsette here saying, to me, they ended MMPR too early. No left seat, right seat that I saw for one version to another. Once MMPR switched runtimes, I was done. Flowing into another version smoothly is important. The hardest thing about migrating from the Angel Grove setting, right? Because everybody was in Angel Grove. Well, it's not just a team. It's everybody was in Angel Grove all the way up to space. You got to remember.
Ernie!
Exactly. Ernie was like, I don't even know. He was like the Alfred of Power Rangers.
It's exactly what I was about to say. So I was going to say he was like everybody's Alfred.
Yeah. Well, at that point he had been, because like all this they were switching on. The teams were switching out. So you had like Carlos come in, you had Justin come in with Turbo and stuff, and then they switched it up in space. And even then, Ernie was still an off and on character that would show up and in space despite the locations being different. They never really clarified where in space was happening. I don't remember. It was
They
just
really
always
did
space.
it. It was just
They landed somewhere on Earth to have lunch. You know, that was, was kind of what they did.
Right, exactly. It was the SpaceX future, like
right, you know,
3,200 or whatever the year will be when that happens.
Yeah, 2030.
Not necessarily the Mars landing. I just mean like the city ships that we can take.
Yeah,
back
the
and forth.
colony ships. Yeah,
yeah.
When you could just jump in a tube and go to Italy. You know. Remember the 90s when we didn't understand anything and we were just like, yeah, sure, it works like that.
Oh, I remember being a kid and you'd be like, why don't you just dig a tunnel underneath like the ocean and go from America to Europe? It's so easy. And
yeah,
then
right.
You grow up and you learn
Stupid
like,
adults.
oh, yeah, right. And then you learn like, oh no, that kid was functionally retarded.
Yeah. Oh, that's this thing called
me
gravity.
as a kid was functionally retarded.
Well, and you know, it's that the whole point of In Space was to pull Power Rangers out of Angel Grove. That's the whole reason why Divatox goes in and literally uproots Zordon out of his house, drags his ass out, and puts him in, and then gives him to Astronema. Well, Dark Spectre, who then gives him to Astronema. So the whole point of all that is to quite literally grab Power Rangers by the roots and rip it out of Angel Grove.
And they kind of had to, because to your point, I think one of the things that made it so hard to separate was the fact that like they spent 3 or 4 seasons or so, I guess if you count the Ninja Rangers, like with that Mighty Morphin specific crew. And so that's kind of what like everybody presumed the show was about, or like that was the show, right? It would be like taking the you take the Justice League cartoon, right? And we run through the first 2 seasons, we run through a season of Unlimited, and then the next, like the last season, season 4 or whatever, is the Teen Titans. And you're like, this is related, sure, but what the heck? Like I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, blindsides you. And you know, they tried their best when Disney got a hold of it. As Leslie says, Leslie Target says, Disney used to have Power Ranger characters at Disney MGM Studios, Hollywood Disney. You could take photos with them. Disney arguably really tried with this franchise. In my opinion, the best of Power Rangers was around Time Force all the way through the Disney, except for Operation Overdrive. And, you know, you got to RPM, which probably was the most mature attempt at rationalizing Power Rangers.
So, yeah.
That was the one, if you didn't stick on that long, Power Rangers RPM was set in a mid-apocalypse world where the Terminators won. Humanity had been whittled down to only 1,000 or so people, and they were all taking refuge in a domed, armored city called Corinth. The main character, his father's the commander who sent his older brother to die in the war against the machines. The Red Ranger has survivor's guilt. The Black Ranger in that series is a cyborg who was forcibly transformed by the Terminator villain in order to try an experiment of creating a human-like body for the villain to inhabit. So his consciousness is constantly being invaded by the villain. His sister, who was blind as a child, was forcibly transformed, and you get to hear it. We see her being drug off screen, and then you hear the buzzsaws and the splattering start and the screaming.
Like Cider's not kidding. This sounds like fan fiction that like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old Power Rangers fan would write, but no, this is like really what it is. And this is why it sucks that we hang out with Rita all the time, right? Like look at all of these villains that we're passing up on because brand recognition.
Well, and you know, we've got Buddy Smith here, and he says Disney wanted to do Power Rangers as an animated series, but due to how the contract with Bandai worked, they were not allowed. And arguably, I would say that saved the franchise. Power Rangers just kind of melts into the like animated character background of television.
Agreed.
When you animate them, they lose the magic of what it is to see like a dude that looks like you and me become an avatar of justice. You know, that Sailor Moon is very impressive, right? In that it takes the concept of quirky teenage girls and turns them into world-saving heroines in skirts. You know, it's clever. It does that very well. It's genius in that way. And while also not emasculating the male hero tuxedo mask. But it's an anime. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that barrier is there. Your imagination, though, is set loose with this live action thing. That's why Super Sentai never moved into being animated, despite anime being home right there in Japan. You know, it's because the
like
magic.
not even Kamen Riders really got, none of these things have gotten anime. I guess Kamen Rider got Fudo PI, but that's like an adaptation of a manga of the show. It's a weird chain there.
Right, and so it's not a direct attempt at creating an animated Kamen Rider. You know, Red Ranger Isekai is probably the closest to a Power Ranger anime that we've ever got that was taking itself seriously. That wasn't like a joke or a parody of Super Sentai. And so, the biggest kind of hurdle with that is that it loses its magic when it's not real people. It's not that it's so much production impressive. It's that to the child mind, you can see yourself transforming. You know, they put all the elements together that your little child brain can say, aha, if I just wave my wrists around, I can transform into this character that can jump over buildings.
That's why you'll see a lot of, you know, when we do merchandising for or like a cartoon or a comic book, you'll get a lot of, you know, masks, and you'll get a lot of their accessories, right? But with Power Rangers, like every merch line comes with those really cheap like Halloween costumes they always make for like little kids. It is about becoming that ranger. They're, like Cider said, for kids it's easier to make that connection to the real life people than an animated thing, even for some adults, right?
Yep. Well, that's part of the magic, is that even because these characters are played by usually people in their 20s that happen to look like children. I'm one of them, where I'm not a Power Ranger, but I'm one of those people where like I shave and I look like I'm 15. So
oh yeah, no, don't worry, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, well, you're Asian. You don't age. Just one day.
Well, that was gonna be what my next
know?
lead-in was, like that's what happens over at Super Sentai is everybody looks 12, even though they're all like 41.
Right, and then they hit 60, and boom, they're just that Asian guy at the casino. You know?
Oh yeah, no. The day we turn 60, like we go to sleep and we wake up with just like
a transformation.
Right, exactly. It's like Robin Williams in Jumanji again, even though I just referenced him last night.
Whatever, it's on your mind. That's cool. But so when we talk about this series, it's really important that we remember that even its roots, Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, the transforming hero genre, is beloved by adults, and it's because you can become a hero. It's a lot. Superman, Batman, Ultraman. They're a bit different in that they require a superpower to get through the gate. You know, Ultraman changes his size. And Batman, of course, his superpower is being rich and tortured by his parents' death. And Superman is, of course, an alien with godlike powers. Whereas a Power Ranger or a Super Sentai hero, they use a device that allows them to enhance their combat capabilities.
Or just give them combat capabilities.
Well, yeah, in Billy's case, yeah. And
Justin's case.
That's true. Yeah, he went from being 12 years old to being, you know, tall enough to get a date.
I hate that transformation like so much when they show that in the montage. He's like small, and then he like weird 90s CGI body morphs into an adult, and it's not okay.
Yeah, your brain just imagines all the bone cracking noise as these get
exactly
Stretch Armstrong down right there. But again, not a well thought out, because it worked in Japan. There's several characters. I think what is our Zero Gold was a child.
Yeah.
And then what is our White Ranger?
We decided to do it. They just do it in the way we talk about this a lot, right? Like in anime or something, they'll be like, okay, this character transformed, and they won't address it. They won't lampshade it. They'll just be like, all right, good, he's transformed, go. In, you know, like a Marvel movie, they'd go, whoa, why did you grow in size? What's up, Pete? Like they would lampshade it, and then they would draw attention to it. So if they just go, he's transformed, yeah, we'll all go, oh, he was a kid a second ago, but he's an adult now. But we would all go, you know, that meme, like it's magic. I ain't got to explain nothing.
Well, again, you got Comrado Xavier here saying Kamen Rider equals a normal man with a magic belt to transform.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we've had different kinds. The majority of the Kamen Rider belts have some type of mechanical aspect to them over magic, but there are magic ones. There's Kamen Rider Wizard.
I meant magic in the sense of like You've seen that meme, right? It's the little gnome and he's got like magic shooting out of his hands, and it's what you use. Like, it's magic. I ain't got to explain shit. I just meant it like that.
Swiggity
Like,
swooty, you're a common writer.
Exactly. Yeah, like you just accept it. It is in the setting, and you don't have to go there and give it a big old explanation.
Well, and see, this was one of the things that Fiona Rad kind of draws attention to by asking this question. Fiona Rad says, which Hollywood studios do you think should have Power Rangers? Because Hasbro doesn't really want it anymore. They were working with Paramount. We'll talk about that in a minute. They're apparently on the skids with them, like they were with Netflix. So,
not even surprised in the least.
Hasbro's a black sheep when it comes to making movies. They just can't get it right. But what I wanted to draw your attention to is that in the American side of this, they have to explain everything. In the Japanese end, we rarely ever find out what the source of the transformation capability is. It's just a thing that this guy who summoned all these people together did in his spare time. You know, between taking a poop and going to work, he put together a transformation network that allows you to transform anywhere in the world because he said. And that's kind of what killed Power Rangers was this obsession with what is the morphing grid? How does the morphing grid work? How do morphers work? Why are they so?
I forget her name. I think she was like she was either she was like the support lady for either like In Space or SPD. I forget her name. She was like an older lady. Was it Kat?
Yeah, it was Kat Manx who was the
yeah. But I remember there was like an episode where I think like some kids from like a school come up to like the station.
I think you're thinking of Dr. Fairweather.
Huh?
I think you're talking about Dr. Fairweather from Lightspeed. And she's the one.
Okay, yes, Lightspeed. It is Lightspeed. Yeah, because there's an episode where a bunch of kids come up and they're still on like a field trip, and they ask her a bunch of questions about that. Like, why does an explosion happen behind them? Like, where do their clothes go when they transform? And she basically like looks at them and is just like, be quiet, like go away, like go back to your field trip. And that was the good old days where they would sort of like, you know, they were poking fun at that. They were poking fun at the idea of everybody going like, what is this? What is this? But nowadays they would take that scene would happen and you'd have a 2-episode special where she's telling you about the origin of the morphin grid.
And again, like that's been more of the obsession with this Mighty Morphin thing that Playmates is trying to pull away from. And you know, we're kind of lucky that it is that simple that if you just try a different team, you might not explode, if you will. It's a crazy concept, believe it or not. But you know, here's more information on this though. So the official reveal will be later on this month at the New York Toy Fair. These are just regular old stamped out 5-inch core 6.
Oh, that already happened.
Yeah. So it's already out. That's in the world. The Zords will be sold separately. We saw all of this stuff. They were very, very, very limited. These were obviously meant to be for kids. One of the things that I appreciate about that is that they actually sat down and said, how would we get children into Mighty Morphin again? And they said, okay, let's just make the price point very low.
And it is a nice price point. I'm very, very impressed by them. It's like $10 per individual Zord and then like $6 per individual Ranger. And I'm like, that is really good, especially like right now with inflation and the economy and everything. I was genuinely blown away by that. Like, kudos.
We're going to get a collector's line as well.
Except now, that I got it. Like the one bad thing is that looks really bad. Like,
well, and so this is what I want to point out is that they're trying to go low, right?
Yes.
They're trying to keep the price point low because as we were told last year by Chris Cox during that investor meeting, Power Rangers is making less than $50 million a year. This was when they had Power Rangers Cosmic Fury had not come out yet. So they were still building to the end when that happened. Sorry, that was 2023. Sorry, that's when that happened. And they were still building toward the end. So the franchise hadn't ended officially. No one had come out and said, it's over, go home. You know, nobody don't want you here. They hadn't done that yet. But under $50 million with the brand still being active, as some people might concern with the Lightning Collection and all this other stuff going on. That's huge when you consider that Power Rangers was a global brand that revolutionized children's entertainment when it arrived in 1993, right? And so what they're trying to do with these collectors lines is say, let's make these things not collector level, as in like you're gonna want to like display them in this museum of like art and things like that. Let's make them a collection, and that like they're all here, guys. Unlike this jackass over here at the Lightning Collection that gave you 1 or 2 from a team, here's everybody. Here's the Zords with them. Take them or leave them.
I genuinely feel so bad for Lightning Collection collectors because
Yeah.
so many Ranger teams. Now you've only got 1, 2, maybe 3 Rangers, and that's all you're ever gonna get.
Well, Ironcaster has a really good point here, and he says, I've got a nephew about to turn 5. He's the perfect age to target as long as they can work in cars. And apparently they're going to be getting the motorcycles. If you remember the Mighty Morphin motorcycles.
The like shark cycles, yeah.
Yeah, the shark cycles, that's what it was. So you're gonna be you got this, I think they're already out. You already have the shark cycles, and they're more Duplo style, play school style. They're chunky. They're meant to be for kids that are gonna whip them out of fucking.
I was gonna
wall,
say, yeah,
you know?
they're to be thrown around.
Right. You can smash this thing and it's probably going to take it, you know? And so that Turbo will be next, of course. I have never in my life seen an attempt at Zeo toys beyond the initial release. I don't think they've ever done another Zeo toy line ever since it first came out.
Were they in? There might have been like 1 or 2 in the Lightning Collection, but yeah, you're right. Like I don't see them ever, and I love them.
Right. Well, Zeo has a very unique offering in that the different Zords in that one used to be their own play places. If you remember this, they used to have like the Zords that would open up like a Polly
Oh wow,
Pocket
they
thing.
actually did all of Zeo for Lightning Collection. That's impressive. I'm genuinely shocked.
My bad. So that's the only time that's ever happened to my knowledge that somebody revisited Zeo. But what we're looking at here is like the full release of like Zords again with that. And at a price point that you probably would be okay with, you know? So this is what I'm trying to get at is this going to be P Bandai awesome stuff? No. This is not going to be.
It's not supposed to be.
Right. This is more about, this is the collection in that it's fucking complete. All right? That's the collection, guys.
You can have all of them.
Right. You can have all of them. And at the same time, so you're not sitting there waiting months and years on end for somebody to remember that they didn't give you the last Zord, you know? So they're going to make everything available that they want to. Zeo had a shit ton of really good looking Zords, so hopefully we'll see that come back.
I mean, that's my favorite Megazord, is the Zeo Megazord.
Yeah.
He's so stupid, but he's so awesome.
Well, and then you had the Zeo Rescue Zords. Zeo. It was the second Megazord.
Oh, you mean the ones that became like the shapes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Super Zeo one.
Super Zeo Zord. That's right. That's the one. That was the coolest one to me because I like the star-shaped Zord. He looks so stupid. He just,
yeah.
Star with arms and legs.
I had them as a kid, and that was my favorite one to play with. Just a giant stupid star with a triangle head. It's so dumb.
Yeah, I love it. I love it though, and I wish they'd do more of that. Like I hope there's a conversation right now that Super Sentai has seen like the writing on the wall, and so the previous formula of the past 50 years is being experimented with through Gozuger. And so right now we don't have a traditional Megazord. It doesn't look like they're going to present us with one. It's going to be more of this combination stuff, which gives me hope that maybe we'll see more shape-based Megazords as you have a core robot that then has these shapes attached to it. Because I just think that's cool. Like I liked Q Ranger's Ball Zord, you know, with all the glowing balls. I thought that was really neat.
Oh, yeah,
it was
yeah,
very
yeah,
fun. And the little guys moving inside. That was really
that
cool.
was awesome.
Yeah, they're really inventive with how that stuff works. So hopefully some of that will come through. I know that.
Did we see? I totally forget. In Gyozuger 1, did we see the any of the Zeo Zords? I mean, obviously not the Zeo Zords, but the Sentai ones. Did we see any of them in the like crowd?
Yeah. Oh, the O Ranger Megazord, the one that looks like the Egyptian one there with the lion.
with like the samurai helmet.
Yeah, that's the one that's like offering its energy up.
Oh, that's right. Yes, you're right.
It's in the background because Zeo Ranger's Megazord was like downed. It was like,
yeah. You can see that one
And
in the front. I remember that.
Yep, it fell over. So, but again, like, so we're looking at that. They've committed to creating a line of toys that you can afford for your kids. You know,
I know. Shocker.
You know, Hey, It's Me in HD says they're chasing the McFarlane model. I don't know exactly if that's the case, because McFarlane wants to create really high quality stuff.
Yeah.
Playmates is more like, we want to make sure that if you like the series as an adult, you can display these things, but we also want to make sure that if you're a child, you can throw them at 40 miles an hour into a brick wall.
Yeah, to Playmates' credit, it does feel like they've learned the sort of lesson of everybody's got MMPR already. Nobody wants to see it anymore. So that's why they're not doing like, here's the hyper deluxe lightning Zord collection or whatever, right? They're doing these super cheap ones. Like Cider said, they're probably starting here because A, most recognizable, and B, it's the first one. So you start here and hopefully we can get out of here.
So Playmates has committed to a younger audience, which I think is really good. I don't believe Power Rangers is good for adults. Don't get me wrong. Okay, I am an adult and I have an appreciation for the franchise. I don't want it to serve my interests. I don't want.
Oh no, definitely not. No.
I don't like the Power Rangers when that really angry one showed up about that where they had
3
the
episodes
eyeballs.
in. His name was Tommy.
Well, yeah, that
I know. I'm just making a joke.
Well, no, it's that really angry one that was fan made, and that one really attempted to. I remember a lot of people received it well, and they were very excited about, like, oh yeah, an adult Power Rangers, that's what we need. And it's like,
oh, are you talking about the like the White Tiger or whatever?
No, that was the White Dragon hasn't come out yet. Bowsette was asking about that, and they're still fuddy duddy.
We talked about it a little while ago on one of my streams. That thing is like. It's probably lost media, but if anybody has it, it's got to be like JDF's girlfriend. She's probably got to have one.
I would say Bat and the Sun has it, and they just don't know what.
Oh well, them too. Them too. Yeah, I mean it's completed. I more meant one out in the wild.
And you'll never. We might hear out of them why it is, but I'm more referring to that one that had Katie Sackhoff in it playing Kat.
Oh yes,
it was that really high end fan made one.
Yeah, what was that?
And that one pissed off JDF because again it did.
That I don't think that one had a title, but that one didn't have like James Vanderbeek too.
Yeah, it was just Power Rangers is what it was, and it was just a really.
So I had forgotten about that until you brought that up. Clearly, by the fact that I didn't jump to it right away. I always remember this. Do you know who freaking directed that? It was Adi Shankar, the guy who's doing Devil May Cry, the guy who did Castlevania for Netflix.
Oh, that explains it.
Right? Once you learn that, you're like, oh, of course it's the way it was.
It's that guy. Yeah. Again, the Power Rangers franchise is aspirational. This is why the DC universe stumbled and fell where the MCU didn't. Okay? The DC's comics are supposed to be aspirational. These are gods attempting to be humans. Even Batman, he's above the level of a regular human being. These are people that exceed anyone's regular day-to-day tolerance, exceed anyone's regular day-to-day morality. Everyone, every last character in the DC universe is that way. Even Etrigan, even crazy old Etrigan has a higher morality role than your average man on the street. Okay? And that's why DC fell, is because they tried to lean into like, what if everybody was like real? What if everybody was like troubled and flawed? And even Superman had a chip on his shoulder. And that's where, because they had to be contrasting the MCU, who said, what if everybody sucked, but they were okay with it and irreverent and millennially about it? You know? And that's what they did, is they took the story outside your window and made it into an episode of Friends that never ended. And it worked for a while, and then we got used to that formula, and now we hate it. But DC fell, and that's why Power Rangers will fall if they lean into this adult angle, is because when you engage with the Power Rangers franchise, you are engaging with aspirational qualities. Your aspirational heroism. These are usually five people, either teenagers or adults, that have agreed to lay down their lives to protect the earth, most of the time in secret. Okay? Not for fear of their family being exposed, but simply because it's just a hassle to explain. I don't know where these powers came from. I don't know who this asshole is in this tube. I don't know what it is with this
a giant
robot.
floating head in a blue tube.
Yeah, hi mom. I got this really new weird friend. He's not selling me drugs.
You think your parents warn you about like internet stranger danger when you get abducted out of your high school by a very, very old man in a small tube with a flamboyant assistant. I would be calling somebody.
Sakura Mita says that fan film showed up on, I guess that's the one on Tubi that showed up.
No, I don't know if that's the one. Okay. It might be there. I have no idea. If Sakura is talking about the one you and I always reference, that we're talking about
2017 though. Isn't that Power Rangers 2017, the one with Krispy Kreme?
Yeah, that's Power Rangers 2017. Oh, yeah. I thought he meant the Power Rangers fan film.
Yeah, this is what Sakura Mita's talking about. It's 2015. And I don't know if the one that got added to Tubi was
because see, I know the one on Tubi that you and I always reference, that's a different thing. That's called The Last Red Ranger, and it is equally as terrible, but it's a different project.
Yeah, that's not the one, because that was the one with the gun and the really bad CGI.
Yep.
So, yeah, that wasn't it. But yeah. If it was released today, is what Sakura Mita's asking. If this fan film with Starbuck, Kate Sackhoff in it, was released today, would people hate it? I think that the modern audience would like it for about 2 weeks, and then they would hate it because of the aesthetic. They have eyeballs, and that's just weird. That's really weird seeing a Power Ranger walking around with eyeballs. And the other part of it is that the grim dark Power Ranger thing works for a few minutes, and then you want it to stop. It's rewarding and seeing the Power Rangers struggle. Yeah, fuck that Zordon guy that made those teenagers fight an intergalactic war. Like, he couldn't find a cop to do that, and so great, you got that. Cool. Character lost his leg. Cool, got it. Tommy's got a weird edge, half evil still. Who knows? Maybe freedom fighter. Whatever's going on is going on. Neat, but it can't Arrowverse because they transform, and it doesn't. It immediately loses the badass when they have to go. It's morphin' time. It's just nope.
Right? Like it's hard to, I don't know. When I think of like scary actual villain, it's really hard for me to see that playing out in Power Rangers. Like I'm not saying they can't do dark themes, right? But if all of a sudden, tomorrow we got a new series and I don't know who's even around anymore. It's like Kimberly comes back and like the first thing you see is she like Daredevil Netflix like cracks somebody's arm in half. I would be like, what are we doing here? Like, that's not the right venue.
Well, and again, it was Bowsette though, the original series, Zordon asks for 5 teenagers with attitude. He fully acknowledges he's looking for child soldiers.
Yeah, no, he fully acknowledges. He does say straight up teenagers. He knows he's getting kids.
So there was no happenstance. They were deliberately chosen because they were teenagers. Apparently Alpha was like the only place where teenagers hang out, or Ernie's Juice Bar.
I was just about to say that. I was going to say the happenstance is the fact that they all came from the same place, but that's probably just Alpha being really lazy.
We find out like somebody from Hasbro is the Boom Comics, right? Somebody in the Boom Comics is going to put out this whole thing about how Ernie was some secret agent of the Order of Meridian, and he put all of them together.
Dude, you're probably right. If that hasn't been done already, it's probably in there.
Yeah, he's the Phantom Ranger. We'll find out that Ernie's been the Phantom Ranger.
You know what? He deserves it. He powered them up for years with his smoothies.
Oh, that would be hilarious. That it's like the reverse morph. Where like he like shuts off the fat guy and becomes the Phantom Ranger, and he transforms into the fat
and
guy.
it slims you down. Heck yeah.
That would be what's going on with that Power Rangers comic. Is Spencer's been following it on and off and talking to me about it. I do have to use the restroom. Do you want to catch up, Leona Rad, on the tragedy that's going on over there?
Oh man, yeah, no, go pee. I will take it from here. So as you guys may know, over the past, I would say like 5, I actually don't know how long it's been running, but maybe 10 years at this point. Good Lord, I am losing track of time. But you guys might know that over the past decade or so, Boom Studios has been doing a line of Power Rangers comics. Now, these have been actually really, really good. They've introduced some things like Lord Draken. We did the Shattered Grid storyline. It really treats the Power Rangers as, you know, like it reveres them. It doesn't mock them. It doesn't subvert them. It really tries to play within the world and deliver good stories. So for the longest time, that was that was the best Power Rangers media we were getting out of anybody. Then last year, when the Hasbro mismanagement started to finally hit, you know, they sold off the toy rights to Playmates. They said, if you're going to be making movies about any of our properties, not just Transformer or not just Power Rangers, you're going to have to pay for it all. We're not helping anymore. And out of nowhere, they cut down the Power Rangers line at Boom Studios from about 3 books-ish to 1. And the one book they're doing now is called Power Rangers Prime. And it is very much a, how would I put this? A modern day new quote unquote Power Rangers team. Basically, the whole setup of Power Rangers Prime is that like Earth, what was it? It was like Earth got invaded by Rita and all of them, and they couldn't fight them back. So then the Eltarians showed up and offered them help, and they won the day and they saved Earth. But then the Eltarians are now like becoming like dictators and enforcing authoritarianism and all this stuff. And so now you've got rebels and different, you know, like Aquatarians are living on the planet now, and Eltarians, and it's just sort of like it's your very generic, we are all different species, fight the ruling class type of storyline, which isn't bad, right? Like that's what a lot of our stories are, you know, down with the people who try to crush us under their thumbs. But this one very much does almost everything to be the heavy-handed example of a neoliberal writing style, right? Like something you would feel out of Marvel comics, where the sensitive boy is actually connected to the Rangers, and Rita's a young hot girl now, and she's manipulating Bulk, who's a member of the Eltarian forces, to be on. It's not great. I don't have a lot of good things to say about it. The best thing I could probably say is there is a bit in the very, very, very first issue where it's revealed that the Power Rangers have been sort of active throughout history. So you get this cool montage of like the Samurai Zord and another one or whatever, like fighting in Boston during the Revolutionary War because a giant monster popped out. You see them fighting in like World War II. You see them defending. There was another one that was really cool, but it put them in these modern settings. And I was like, or not modern, but historical real world settings. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I really like that idea. But then literally like after those pages, it just sort of spirals. It just sort of spikes. So in the grand scheme of the Power Rangers picture, it is just sort of, this is what they want to do with the Power Rangers, right? With the Power Rangers, you have a very easy built-in excuse to do the, you know, everybody's diverse, because that, even though that was what they went into casting the Rangers, that's sort of what we got. And it's really easy. Just pick 5 random people. Everybody can believe it. But because that's already inherent there, now they're doing like the X-Men thing, right? Where you can see an analogy. So now they're making that the analogy, where it went from we're, you know, fighting back against evil fighting forces to we're fighting back against evil authoritarianism that's racist and xenophobic and blah, 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 blah. And again, those themes are good. They're just not what I like. It's not for Power Rangers. It's just very, very odd, especially when you do it so heavy-handedly and not in an attempt to entertain. Again, it's still the same problem we see with everything else. Welcome back.
Sorry. This is to Bowsette's point. That, you know, she's saying this like you know, you're okay with that, but Ubisoft's doing the same thing. Power Rangers doing this is again by the same people thinking, the same thinking behind the Ubisoft people doing it. You have to understand that. But how we receive it as Super Sentai fans is the same as when Super Sentai characters are sent back in the past. SPD Red Jack went back in the past and beat the ass off an alien samurai in, I presume, Sengoku era Japan, but just about there. It might have been feudal era. And that happened. That was real Power Rangers, where a black police officer Yeah, it was real history. A black police officer from 2025 kicked the ass of a alien samurai in ancient times and then jumped back through a portal. Like that. Okay, going home for lunch now. That's over. And they never spoke of it again.
And the big difference there is the intent, right? Like when they went back to Samurai Sengoku era, they went. It was probably no more deeper thinking than like, let's go back to the Sengoku era, or like it was Samurai, right?
No, it was a Deca Ranger episode. That's a one-for-one Deca Ranger episode where Ban goes back in time,
right?
Yeah,
but and so that's a different intent though than we're going to virtue signal to you. That's a big thing of it too, right? Like. Right. Again, like we talked about last night, historical fiction works, but if you're going in with this intent of we know what we're talking about, and then you don't, then you're just going to rub everybody the wrong way and piss everybody off at every turn.
Or you're going in with the intent of saying we're going to teach these people their history, like they've done with Yasuke,
or their fandom or whatever it happens to be.
Like they've done with Yasuke, is that rather than just admitting that, hey, we thought it would be cool to have a black samurai, they have to go through and say, well, history says it was a samurai. He was this, he was that. Rather than just saying, we're weirdo Canadians and we think it would be cool for a black samurai to behead Japanese men.
And we all would have been like, oh, okay, maybe you're virtue signaling, but it would have been such a different conversation if they'd have just said, we're doing this because it's cool, and it didn't try to justify it. And essentially gaslight us over it.
Oh, it absolutely is fanfic, cool. Bowsette. It's absolutely fanfic. But one of the things is that let's say they did this in Super Sentai, where they started having the giant robots and the Sentai heroes show up in Japanese history and maybe in American history too, maybe Russian history. They do like a Go Ranger, a Jack. No, it's Go Ranger that was from the different. Yeah, Go Ranger was from the different nations. And so they do a Go Ranger revitalization.
Jack Q is the playing cards.
Right. That's right. So maybe they do that. And so you do have these people fighting on the front lines of World War II and fighting in Cambodia and fighting in Vietnam and all this other stuff. But the intent behind that would be to show their heroism. And this is why when we're seeing it as fans of the greater franchise, as opposed to just people absorbing the comic, it is cool to us to think that there would be 5 people in these time periods that would agree to sacrifice their lives in order to, ensure that the United States became a nation, not knowing that would be its fate. That they were colonists and said, okay, I will lend this power given to me by this alien in a floating tube to save the colonies from the tyranny of the British.
Well, they weren't fighting the British. They were still fighting a kaiju. They're still not a political actor. It's still just like, that's what it is too, right? Like they're not joining a side. We're not saying, oh, these heroes would have fought for X or Y or blah, blah, blah. We're saying they were there. There was a monster threatening the colony. They killed the monster.
Right. And then, of course, you have another dialogue where, Truman says, it's the nuke or the Megazord. It's your choice. Either way, we're doing something about Japan.
I wouldn't like that. No, I don't. Well, I wouldn't like that.
It's more of that like conversation of what is the role of the Power Ranger. That's the intent of that, is what is the role of the Power Ranger? Do you use the Power Ranger in a paramilitary fashion? What is defense of a nation? And an adult conversation.
Now I think you're conflating things, because like the Power Rangers appearance in these time periods in that comic isn't about we're protecting a nation, we're fighting for a cause, right? It is literally monster shows up, we must fight monster. I wouldn't want them to all of a sudden be fighting on the front lines of World War II for any side. I wouldn't want to see them in the Iraq War or fighting in the Revolutionary War. I want them to be sort of like Superman, right? Like they're bipartisan. They're there to save lives. You guys can figure out all of your own crap, but I'm here to fight this big monster that will kill you all, regardless of what you think.
It could be a British monster, and he could, tea drinking.
I still wouldn't want it to have anything to do with the crown.
So what they're going to do, though, is they're focusing here is they're bringing up Ninja Kids. And the reason why this is important is that Ninja Kids is kind of, I guess, the lazy town of this generation. Wait,
is Ninja Kids is this like capital N, capital K Ninja Kids? Like, is it a thing, or are you just saying like?
No, it's an action series. It's right here on the screen. Oh. It's not an action series. It's like a kids do stuff series. It's not Mr. Beast for kids, but it's like 2 steps back from that.
Ninja Warrior for kids?
No, I don't think it's even that. It's like an activity
I've legitimately never heard of this, so I'm so 8 seasons.
I can't show any of it because it's obviously super copyright protected.
Yeah, are you
but
kidding
we
me?
could show
I can
images.
just tell. I can tell by looking at that thumbnail that they have like the helicopter nightmare YouTube parents who are probably like they're probably here right now because some AI thing detected that the image is just up.
So as you can see, the Ninja Kids is like an activity kind of thing. That's their big push is we do things with our bodies. We are active children doing things, and look at us do things you can do too. And of course, you know, this is very popular. So like I said, it's a bit like Lazy Town. It's a bit like Nickelodeon.
I'm just glad it's not on Cartoon Network. Do you remember that weird push when they were trying to do like live action stuff there?
Yep. So
it's cartoons.
This is going to be in tandem with advertisements for Power Rangers on this social media end. So the Ninja Kids aren't going to go out and make a specific series about Power Rangers integration. They will be part of the social media push to revitalize the Power Rangers appeal to children. So expect them to be like playing with the role play toys of Power Rangers in like the weird little shorts that you'll be scrolling through on YouTube, and all of a sudden some kids from today are running around with toys that you played with as a kid. You know, because that's arguably what Playmates has done is they've revitalized those early 90s toys where they were like,
I had all of the original like head morpher figures, the 8-inch figures. I had all of those. I have two of them sitting right next to me right now. I have a White Ranger and a Blue Ranger. So they're definitely just the outside of the what did you call them? The like dress up role play toys. Like those are new, but the figures and stuff. Well, not the new Lightning collection, but yeah, everything else. They're just bringing it back.
Yeah, it's a bit like that Kirby, that it is a bit like the DARE effort to keep kids out of drugs, but they don't explicitly tell you not to do drugs. It's sort of with their healthy living initiatives. So they talk about healthy eating, healthy sleep routines. It's integrated into there about keeping your body clean and staying away from things that adults are supposed to interact with. So they got smarter is what I'm trying to say about the
Like
DARE outreach.
Twitter.
They got smarter. Yeah, don't do Twitter, kids. Don't do Twitter. I do believe that's a good idea to get the kids off of it, to ban use until you're like 16 or 18.
We used to have kids sections on the internet, like Yahoo and then Yahoo Kids.
Yeah.
Bring it back. I don't need to see your opinions on anything ever.
Well, it's one of those things where the WB website. Do you remember the WB website where you could go play video games?
I absolutely do.
Cartoon Network did that. I used to play the Courage the Cowardly Dog video game
I
all
used
the
to play
time.
those games all the time.
You know who didn't do that? Power Rangers.
They really didn't. They dropped the ball. It was
Yep.
weird. Even their
A
video
dumb
games
little
were kind of
Flash game.
lackluster.
Yeah, I had the Game Boy Advanced SPD game, and you could.
That
fall
was
asleep
literally the
playing
one
it.
I was thinking of. Like,
Yep.
it's wonky.
Yeah, the controls were muddy. Everything was slow, and the animations just would get stuck. Sometimes it was so hastily put together. But yeah, whatever. It is what it is. The DARE shirts. Well, so I'm sure there's some way of numerologically spelling DARE out of Ninja Kids, because it has like who are those? It has Masonic feelings to it. When you watch an episode, you're like, there's a little bit of symbology here. There's a little bit of messaging going on. But Ninja Kids will be part of it, and I think that's a really good thing because, again, the franchise is pushed so hard into appeasing adults. That's what Cosmic Fury was all about. It's like I tell people about this franchise. Imagine being 8 years old and discovering Power Rangers, and you want to get into like what's going on right now, and you drop into Cosmic Fury, which is like, hey, here's all these references from 20 years ago that you have no attachment to whatsoever, and the main bad guy is a guy that you have to understand from 20 years ago in order to understand why he's a threat at all right now. Because they don't do that in Cosmic Fury. He's absolutely no threat to them. Even when he gets the Morphin Master powers, he just gets a stupid cape. He's no threat to them at all during that entire thing.
That made me think he was more powerful. Like, he at least communicated the look.
He looks scary. Yeah. He was all pointy. I think Bitter 102 has that. He'll be showing off his stuff soon. He let us know. You posted it to me that Bitter 102 was random fella that had never truly engaged with the Power Rangers franchise beyond watching it on television and owning a few toys. Out of nowhere, this guy decides to dump his crypto fortune on the majority of the auction. So this guy got 5 pallets of stuff and a straight up 7-foot tall wooden crate full of monster costumes. So we look forward to seeing what he's got and how he's going to display it. So yeah, Ivan Ooze was another one that they really tried to make work. He was another villain that felt really scary, and they didn't really know how to
Didn't he
communicate.
show up
the
like
children.
twice or something in the show? I feel like
No,
he
it
did,
was only
he
in
only
the
in the movie?
he was only in the movie. They never brought him over. They
Dang,
never mentioned
I
him.
could have sworn he did like one thing, but maybe that's just me being dumb.
They
Well,
may
not
have had
maybe,
like
it really is.
They may have had like a bottle of ooze in the background that somebody interacted with from the movie, but basically everything from the movie was completely iced off from the show.
Yeah, no, I just looked it up. It is literally that is the only thing he appears in, and
Yep.
anything related to the movie, like the game and the comic books, but only the movie.
Yep, that's it. And he was very threatening, but again, like they didn't know how to communicate what kind of threat he was. So he was just sort of like crazy old man wizard. And that was all they could really broadcast about him, because again, in the 90s, if we show kids too much violence, that was the big complaint about Power Rangers when I was growing up, is it was teaching kids violence.
I remember that one too. Dang, wow, I just got hit by like a nostalgia brick. I haven't heard that argument in ages.
Yeah, it was along with the Pokemans were stealing your kid's identity.
Yep.
They were getting into gambling through the Pokemans. And my father was especially, he was born in 1929, so he was especially out of touch with this stuff. So he would call Digimon Gigimon just to piss me off.
At least he was doing it on purpose.
Yeah, oh yeah, he knew how to say it, and he was just doing it to piss me. Because he grew up when the Japanese were the enemy, and I was absolutely in love with Japanese culture, and so he just
you're bringing them into my house,
right? He did not like my appreciation for Japan whatsoever. This was a guy that was hardline. John Wayne's the greatest human being to walk the earth, So
I mean, he was Genghis Khan, so we know your dad's not.
Yeah. There's a universe where John Wayne is Genghis Khan in real life. Like that, the face and body of John Wayne is Genghis Khan. Somewhere.
Dig up room and it's him.
Yeah, that'll be the funniest part, right? That they dig up and do a facial reconstruction, and it's just John Wayne.
And it is just like Mongol John Wayne.
It's just John Wayne that looks like he's staring into the sun. That's all.
That's incredible. I need that so bad.
That would be so funny. Then you get the memes of like, howdy, pilgrim,
Howdy, pilgrim.
The most terrifying words in Southeast Asia. Howdy, pilgrim.
The Chinese tremble in fear.
The John Wayne multiverse. Yeah, sure, why not?
Literally at this point, why not? We've gotten multiverses for everything else.
There won't be a 35th anniversary. They shut her down at the 30th. There won't be a new. That currently Hasbro's not in any talks to do anything with the Sentai footage. The last it was known is that they broke off from buying Sentai footage completely. They ended the contract with the stunt team in New Zealand that had come on in the Disney era and been there since then. So that was done. There's no effort to do production at this time on the television intended level, like the Netflix level, if you will. And they were going into a oh, whoops, gotta grab the webpage. Hold on. They were going into a movie. Excuse me, I'm trying to find the clip here. Not the clip, the movie. They just broke up. That's what I'm trying to get at. Is that they just had Paramount just had a big issue with them and they broke up. I don't remember which news it was.
That was like a couple of years ago. They were just like, we're not doing it anymore. We're not taking footage.
No. See, they recently Paramount just announced they were doing a Power Rangers movie, and that was it. They hadn't moved any further with it. And I thought I just saw an article or some post that they had broken up. So that's my fault. But
I
We
mean,
do have
there's been rumors of a show or like of a movie for a while, and it's been going out. So who even knows at this point? Like it is generally one of those things that I feel like is going to be like Kathleen Kennedy's exit. It's just going to be one of those things that we talk about forever until somebody either says yes or no.
Well, we do know for sure that they will be using AI to upcycle the re-release of the Mighty Morphin season 1, at least. Might be season 2 as well. Could be season 3. I
Could be the
wouldn't.
rest of it. Yeah, we only just know one right now.
What I believe it'll be is it'll just be a 4K upscale of the 1993 footage, because the Sentai footage was very aged.
It is.
And of course, the American footage is so much different in its presentation. Hop by. Oh, I gotta go. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I gotta hop off. I have another stream I gotta get to. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah, Cider, take it from here. Lead everybody through the rest of this, and to everybody out there, enjoy whatever we have coming with Power Rangers.
Yeah, right. The mistake
I'll
of it all.
I'll talk to you in a bit, amigo.
Yeah, man. Have a good luck. Good luck with
Adios.
that. Have a good luck, or whatever. If you want to go find out where Spencer is, check out his ex. I don't know where he's headed to. He didn't tell us. So, is this an AI remaster? Yes, that's what I believe. Is that it'll simply be a 4K upscale of the footage. Spencer, before he left here, we were talking about this when it was first announced. What Spencer thought it was going to be was what Disney did with MMPR when they still had it before they sold it off to Neo Saban there at the end, where they started adding in all these 90s cool effects and stuff like that, airbrushed effects, stuff like that. That was just really over the top. They added like heart emojis and things like that. It was very strange. Very, very weird. Again, an attempt to like ADHD-ify the footage, I guess, was their goal in that one. I don't see Hasbro doing that here. That's too much involvement, if you will. That's too much effort. What I see them doing is instead just sending this off to whatever AI upscale company that they work with, and boom, they're just going to remaster the footage up to 4K scale. So, you might actually get to see the Super Sentai footage from Zero Ranger in 4K detail. That would be pretty cool. I'm not sure if Shout Factory's done that or not, but they did do 1080p. They did do HD footage. I don't know about 4K, but I believe that's what they're aiming to do. Yeah, have a good luck. Yep, that's what I'll put that on a t-shirt. Have a good luck. Just have one. Only one good luck. The shit show which is about men in tights with the Power Rangers mantle. Yeah, well, again, it's one of those things where the franchise appeals to people who like the transformation aspect, and folks that prefer kind of like that inlaid superpower, like Superman, for instance, the Flash, that kind of stuff, that part of the biology heroism, don't really come through on it. Again, Super Sentai, Power Rangers, not exactly appealing to people who are into magic as well. So like, the niche is very narrow. Let's put it that way. The niche is very narrow. Biona Rad says, I guess they're going to use AI to remaster for MMPR release for the 35th. Oh, right. There won't be a 35th team. There'll be a 35th anniversary, in that it is 35 years since it came out. Hopefully they'll get it out in time, but yeah. That is most likely what it'll be, is just AI upscaled. Like you see that old black and white footage on YouTube. That's what they're going to do. Just some professional company makes sure everything is consistent, and they charge money for that. Again, we're in the age of AI where you just slap something in there, and all you got to do is just make sure that second to second, frame to frame, it doesn't suck. That's it. It's just verifying the machine didn't screw it up. That's it. Honestly, they're going to botch the Sentai footage. I don't think so. I don't think so. Because again, this is an upscale situation where they'll be just feeding it into the AI and confirming that it looks better than when it went in. And maybe it won't be 4K, but it'll be marketed as 4K. I guarantee that. Okay. Bernie? I don't remember which Power Rangers character that was. Do you remember Bernie? I haven't watched every episode of every season, but I've seen parts of every season, so I don't know who Bernie is, and we know who Ernie is. He's the guy who had the juice bar, but I don't know who Bernie is. Was that the name of the guy in Megaforce that ran the juice bar, and they just put a B on Ernie? He was like the Indian guy. I think he was Southeast Asian fella. South Asian fella. I don't know. Yeah, it's run for 35 years. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But so this is what we're looking at here. You're probably going to see this with a lot of other franchises. Expect like He-Man to get like an AI upscale. If there was anybody who cared about it, it'd be the Banana Splits would get it, you know. But of course, the boomers are on their way out, so nobody's going to appreciate that media but hipsters. Let's see. What else would get hit with that had like notoriously shitty footage, but people liked? What was that? What was that other one that was really popular in the 90s, but it sucked visually? I don't remember what it was, but there was some other cartoon or live action show that was just completely terrible visually, that was really popular, but like for whatever reason, the footage coming through the television just was god awful. I don't remember what it was. It was very fuzzy and things like that. Again, like up in Maine, maybe the cable wires were screwy, but from the squirrels chewing on the cables, I don't know. But the reality of that is that somewhere out there, yeah, it was so good it was bad, right? But I don't remember what show it was that shared this with Power Rangers. It wasn't necessarily that they were using older footage spliced with newer footage like Power Rangers was, but I don't necessarily know what the name of the show is, but it was one of them. It was just so terribly bad visually. Something went wrong with just about every episode of the footage, but I don't remember what it was. One of those bizarre ones out there. But we'll continue with the information about this one, about more AI. In July, this is when all this stuff is supposed to come out. They'll be using I hate this phrase because it demonstrates they don't know what more phenomenal is supposed to mean. Now with even more phenomenal with the power of it's now even more phenomenal with, it's not how you don't say the word now even more phenomenal, right? It doesn't sound right when you do that, because like more phenomenal sounds stupid when you understand what phenomenal is. Phenomenal is the combination of morphing, which is transmorph, the kind of it's a scientific term for what plants do to sunlight. I think that's what that's called, is the transmorphing of the sunlight into energy to live. I think that's what that's called. But anyway, that's where morph came from. And so morph got merged in with phenomenal because back in the 90s they were doing a lot of cocaine, and that was something that popped into somebody's cocaine fueled head. And I am envious that the human being came up with that all on their own. Like, I wouldn't have thought to stick morph in front of phenomenal, right? I wouldn't have thought that. In all my years, I don't think I would have ever been that clever. I'm still astonished that somebody sat down and found this extremely niche scientific term and then turned it into a catchphrase. It's pretty cool, but now they've abused it, and I hate it. I hate it so much. Now even more phenomenal. That makes sense. I'm okay with that. I can live with that. Now even more phenomenal, but not now even phenomenal with the power of AI. It's very strange. It's a very strange statement to make. But that's photosynthesis. Sorry, my bad. But it's a scientific term. It's photomorphic. It's some type of scientific term that describes transformation, but it uses morph in it for whatever reason. And that is where they got the idea of it. So yeah, okay, that must have been the one, was VR Troopers, because they were doing the same thing with Sentai, but the footage they were using was newer, so it still looked terrible, but it wasn't as terrible, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just trying. I'm doing the George Bush thing where some words might be real, some words might be not. I don't know. Yeah, well, no, I don't want that. The word is just very clever. I just was surprised that someone managed to put that photomorphogenesis. Yeah, that sounds like something that people do. Yeah, it's close enough. Yeah. Close enough. But yeah, more phenomenal was a very strange catchphrase, and I just envy how genius it was for the time. That's all. But what they're trying to do here is that, like, once again, this is the conversation of old things don't appeal to young people. Okay, which I agree. 90s stuff probably won't appeal to young people. I don't think upscaling it with AI is going to fix it. I don't think that pushing the limits of the visual presentation of Power Rangers is going to correct any of the I guess hiccups with the franchise. I don't think that really an honest attempt to revitalize it is going to happen without what Playmates is doing. Playmates is sitting here and prioritizing the kids, which, when we get down to it as adults, enjoying this franchise, enjoying what the Power Rangers Super Sentai represents, it is intended for children. And it should be, and it should stay that way. No matter how it presents itself, it should always be aimed toward children. Because, again, it's aspirational fiction, and that's why we like it as adults. Say what you like about the giant robots, say what you like about the kung fu, say what you like about the rainbow spandex. The reason why the adults like it is because it's that aspirational fiction that tells you, as just the average 9 to 5 American, 9 to 5 Japanese person, you too can become the avatar of justice simply by shouting a phrase to the sky and waving your wrists around. And it's very, I guess, addictive in that sense, and that, like, just being a courageous heart allows you to be a hero. And so long as that, because you can't transform that into an adult concept. Adults just we don't resonate with that. Superman's battle for morality is much deeper than simply having the wherewithal to sacrifice yourself to help other people. That's kind of the core of what a Power Ranger is laying down your life to help other people as an average person. Superman's plight is a lot deeper than that with how he battles for morality. Batman's, of course, much more deeper, that sort of thing. So they can be moved up into an adult, frame of reference, whereas Power Rangers really can't, and it really shouldn't, as I said. So I think Playmates is making the right decision here. Honestly, I don't disagree with keeping the franchise focused on kids. That's what keeps it fun. That's what keeps it fresh and interesting. We saw what happened with the MCU as it continued to try and entertain adults. It became stagnant and boring and repetitive. There you go. Bowsette says, you can always have one for children and one for adults. Kids shows have adult humor in them. Even MLP, Friendship is Magic, didn't get away from it with having a spell to get rid of the trots. Well, yes, of course. The first season of that was very fun. That was Gendy Taratovsky, the guy behind Dexter's Laboratory, Powerpuff Girls, Symbionic Titan, if you're that guy that remembers that. I'm one of them. But yeah, again, like infusing that kind of meta humor, if you will, that's fine. But as long as it stays geared toward 8 to 14-year-olds, it's going to be in its comfort zone. It's going to be fresh and new and interesting and, stay on its feet, stay on its toes, rather, stay on its toes. Whereas, you go one way or the other, it's going to be bad. I don't think Power Rangers can do adult and children at the same time. And that's simply because of brand recognition. Kids will see the adult version of Power Rangers and be entirely confused by it, and adults will be put off that they're a fan of something that's a children's show at the same time. It's one of those weird kind of, I don't know, to get more people involved with it, I think it's a little different. If you split it up like you did Power Rangers and then had some equivalent to the Kamen Rider on the other side of it, again, I don't want to do Mask Rider again. That was very, very wrong. But if you came at it from like the perspective of trying to do like a visually functionally different Power Ranger guy, like the Kamen Rider is just one guy. If you tried to separate that from the Power Rangers, gave it a different name, but it functioned the same, guy transforms into Avatar of Justice, but he's on his own, that kind of thing, probably would get people into it. Probably would get people, the adults would probably eat that up because, again, it's the same concept, but it's the lone hero, and as opposed to trying to build in all of those teamwork dynamics and rainbow colors and the giant robot battles. It's a guy that's sort of just punching evil into submission and then roundhouse kicking them into oblivion, with some type of flaming dive kick. And again, adults would probably resonate that one with differently than Power Rangers. And this is kind of the big mistake that they made with Power Rangers again, is that Disney was a place that had a lot of money. They had an opportunity to come through and create the Kamen Rider series. There was an attempt with RPM, as we discussed, to kind of make Power Rangers more adult, right? Which again, I don't think is a good idea, but you could have taken that writer, that guy's ambition, and separated it out into a Kamen Rider transformation, Kamen Rider series that was attempting to pitch to people who were maybe 16 to 25. They were trying to capture that young adult demographic. That's kind of like where the Arrowverse found itself. Kamen Rider serves Arrowverse a bit better because again, Kamen Rider is not about saving the world most of the time. There are ones that are for saving the world, but most of the time it's a more head-on conflict between the riders and the villains. They're either directly tied to one another, or the conflict between the rider and the villain is a personal one. Whereas the Power Rangers are just like, hey, you asshole, trying to destroy this, inexplicably trying to destroy this California coastal town. We're going to stop you with the power of teamwork. It clicks a little differently, with adults. And again, they still have the opportunity to do that if they wanted to. Lionsgate, Paramount, whoever has a Power Rangers angle on this could reach out to Japan and say, pretty please, could we try Kamen Rider again, please? We promise that we're not going to screw it up this time. I can't guarantee that as a fan. I know that they are tempted to put in politics into this stuff where it doesn't belong, but this would be a time where you could experiment with that. You could officially try a Kamen Rider in America. I think it would do okay these days. 10 years ago, maybe not. But now there's probably enough exposure to Japanese culture through anime and manga and video games that Kamen Rider wouldn't seem so bizarre, wouldn't seem so strange to people anymore. So, yeah. Say no to the West. Yeah, well, again, Japan's learning this, the hard way, unfortunately. And I hate it. I don't want to lose our Japanese friends, our little brother Japan. I don't want to lose that. But unfortunately, in order for their survival, they're going to have to abandon Western thinking and go back to the ye olde ways, which kind of a double-edged sword if you can forgive the pun. But that's what it'll take, is returning to fundamentalist Japanese beliefs in order to rescue them, unfortunately. Yeah, politics now would, again, like this Superman movie that James Gunn is working on, he says it's not going to be tied to today. It's going to be kind of timeless. It's going to just have a message about being the good guy, like Spencer was talking about, where Superman's just there to save lives. I don't think they can do that. I don't think they can get away with it these days, even if they try, right? Again, let's say that James Gunn is legitimately making that effort. People outside of this will politicize its interpretation. That's the hard part about having like an American icon like Superman, is people want to make that them. They want to make it explain them in the moment, Whereas again, if you bring in a character like Kamen Rider, they're going to want to do the same thing. They're going to want to tell some type of political bend around a young man forcibly transformed into a cyborg, which, Kamen Rider Ichigo, Kamen Rider Hango, rather. Takeshi Hango, the first Kamen Rider, that was his story, is he was forcibly transformed into a cyborg and had to live the life of a high school student while also fighting monsters from Shocker, the same group that created him, intending for him to be their general. And, very cool idea, right? You could pull that off today. You don't necessarily have to make him a high school student. You could just make him a regular guy that had that happen to him. And again, that's a very compelling franchise to put together today. But I don't think the willpower is there to keep it clean. Even back then, they were making fun of the Nazis, right? Kamen Rider was constantly dealing with Nazi themes. He beat the ass off of Starfish Hitler. he popped out of a Nazi coffin, you know? I think that the series would have to really step back and ask itself what it wanted to say before they even got started with like scripting out the dialogue, scenes, whatever. They'd have to say like, what do we want American Kamen Rider to be about? And then they have to stick with it. And I don't think they have the willpower to do that. We saw it with the MCU. They didn't have the willpower to just keep a consistent story. Look at the Eternals. Look at all the way after Endgame, all of them just decided that, well, we're going to tell our own story and it's going to loosely come together. And then what do we find out? It can't come together. You end up with a traffic accident like Captain America: Brave New World, trying to quantify all the stupid decisions and ego serving that the past 10 years of Marvel's been. So here we are. Round and round we go. Richard says, I disagree, but we're talking about different things. Oh, okay. Maybe we're supposed to write to the audience like they're 5 now. Screw that. Well, you're right. You know, again, like we're not, you know, again, like this is the studio level. Americans themselves, our media is very different from the rest of the world. I don't know if you observe this with American media or not, but it is very different. And the reason is that Americans are very used to having our hand held in media. Tarantino laments how people have to have stuff explained to them. A few other, I think Coppola talked about this too with his mafia movies, where you have to explain to people that no, the mafia guy is not going to get away with it. Sit down and wait another 10 minutes. He's going to end up in jail and dead, because they don't have the confidence, I guess, or at least the faith in what they're seeing to believe that their assumptions about it are correct. And I don't know why that is, but that's chiefly what plagues American media, is that the majority of the audience expects the movie to tell them who the bad guy is, who the good guy is, and what the moral at the end is. The influence of Japanese media may change that, especially where the youth sort of almost uniformly embraced it with the Zoomers and the Alphas. I don't know. We might see a shift in what American audiences expect out of entertainment as these guys come to influence the economy in the next few years. I don't know. But for right now, most of the American audience, being boomers at this time and early millennials and Gen X, most of them prefer having the writer reach through the television screen and say, hey, you, that guy over there, that's the bad guy. That guy over there, that's the good guy. Okay. All right. We're going back to the movie now. Let's go. And that's what they want. You know, I've noticed that even with politics, they want a lot of people in America want to have this stuff outlined for them rather than simply observing it with their own 2 eyes. So it's kind of where we're stuck, I guess. Maybe it'll change in a few years. Like I said, the influence of Japanese media does. One of the things that you learn as you grow up and kind of get out of anime, I'm not saying grow up as in like you mature and you become better. It's just like you literally get older. As you observe the years of anime you've like followed, and now how you've kind of fallen out. Like me, I'm not into new stuff. Like I don't even watch the Red Ranger Isekai the whole way through. I just catch clips. It's just not my speed. New anime looks different. It has a very different attitude to how the action works and the scripting works. So I just don't, it's not my thing. So as I look back at what was going on with how Japanese anime influenced the way I think, because of what the media I was observing, I observe media as a whole differently. Japanese anime asked me to interpret ideas most of the time, whereas American media told me what was happening. When you go learning the Japanese language, you start thinking a little differently about the world itself, because Japanese language says that the subject is the last part, the identifier is the last part of the sentence. The subject is the first. You're not telling someone that, hey, that guy is running away from a tsunami. You're saying the tsunami is coming, and then you're saying that man is running away. And just in learning how the language functions, maybe not learning the whole language, but in learning how the language functions, your perception of the world is entirely turned around. And so that's, again, bits and pieces may come to influence the audience, but Richard, as we're standing today, you kind of do have to write for a 5-year-old. A lot of people expect that. You got to remember too that people are like on their phone talking, trying to fit their dick into a popcorn bucket. It's one of those things, you know, where you've got a lot of competing distractions, even in the movie theater, that prevent people from fully engaging with the media. And it's an American thing. You go over to the Asian countries, they're pretty drilled in on what they're watching. They give them glow sticks and everything to be more drilled in on it. You go over to Europe, they're all artsy fartsy. Going to the movie is a symbol, you know, going to the cinema is a symbol. You know, it means something a bit more than leisure time. And so the attitude of media is much different outside of the US. And that, again, works to hurt shows like Power Rangers, who come from Japan and thus have Japanese flair to them. Maybe not now. Maybe not now, though. It's kind of up in the air with what the audience is going to interpret, as I said, because of all the Japanese influence that's come through the Zoomers and the Alphas. So, Richard says Japanese is contextual, English isn't. Way I'd put it, what you just said. Well, it's the other way. It's kind of the other way around. English is contextual in that you can be talking about anything. So I explain this a lot of the time of how English is a superior language to all of the languages on earth, because you can drop just a random Spanish word into a fully English sentence in the middle of New York City and people know what you're talking about. You can drop a Chinese word into the middle of a fully English sentence and people understand what you're talking about, despite having no idea what that word really means. It is how you're saying it, where you're saying it, and why you're saying it, the full context of that. So whereas Japan, I would say, is less of a contextual language and more of an efficiency language. Now, again, I know that's not an official term, but the Japanese in all ways seek efficiency. And what is most efficient in language? Talking about the thing that's happening right in front of you, not who it involves. And that's very efficient in a world where, in a land where earthquakes, wildfires, endless war, and tsunamis were constantly bearing down on you. Who the hell cares who's getting swept up in the tsunami? A fucking tsunami's coming. You know, that was kind of like the efficiency of it all. And so that's what I mean. Richard says, I mean, Japanese changes meaning with the same sentences in the context of use. Okay, so there you go. That's yeah, you're right. Is that in that sense? It's of course, yeah, you're right. Functionally, English is the contextual language, but when it comes to how the Japanese are communicating, yes, you're right. It's a contextual language, of course. Mexican, Spanish, Indian, European, all last first, directly translated, not localized. Well, and again, like as well as like with that, we have localizers in America that don't believe that youth will engage with anime unless there's references to memes Among Us and current terms. You know, Tumblrisms aren't scattered into anime from the 90s, you see? And so that's where we're kind of stumbling over ourselves again as the politics continues to infect everything that we do. All right? This might change again with the alphas and zoomers who express a sort of exhaustion with hyper politicizing everything. We might not see that change because, again, since the beginning of American advertisement, it's been us versus them. Since the very beginning of how we were advertising ourselves, it's been us versus them. So, of course, it boils down into politics because everything's tribal over here. You can't just be a guy, you know? You got to be a guy on one side or the other of the line. What line it is? Well, we'll decide with each person you talk to. So tiresome. It's all so tiresome. I still don't know if Zatoichi was a good guy or a bad guy. Again, the Japanese are very clever with that. Did you if you saw Kamen Rider Black Sun, that was the Amazon funded one, doing really good in that show, doing a really good presentation, really intelligent, then bang, all of a sudden, by the way, racism. Pardon? What? We're talking about monsters, people who are eating other people's flesh, and they're, you know, this horrible organization, Shocker, who has grabbed people and forcibly transformed them, and then the two brothers who are like at each other's throats and beating each other up every time they meet each other. But by the way, there's this random black guy who's not having a great time in country, and he likes drawing naked women. And then all of a sudden, Kamen Rider Black Sun just completely collapses into a sort of analyzation of how Japan doesn't treat people who are not Japanese fairly. Just out of nowhere. I think it's like the last 2 episodes, particularly the last 5 minutes, are completely obsessed with that. And I just it absolutely annoys the hell out of me. You know, the bad guy in the story is supposed to be some version of Abe, Minato Abe, Shinzo Abe, sorry, Shinzo Abe, not his father. And so throughout the delivery of the villain in Kamen Rider Black Sun, you're getting him talking about like, in order to satisfy the monsters in this, the kaijin, as they're known in Black Sun, they have to be eating heaven, and heaven's made out of humans. And so the bad guy is saying that he's sacrificing gay people and foreigners to have them turned into the food for the monsters. And it's like, you know, and he's explained to be like basically Shinzo Abe of this universe. He has the same parental lineage as Shinzo Abe. You know, it's such a one-to-one. Abe man is bad. If you'll forgive the term, like Orange Man is bad, Abe man is bad. And again, like it just all of a sudden pulls a lever, like somebody walked into the writer's room, like, hey, this is really cool, but there's nothing in here that condemns white straight men. Can you fix that? And they were like, no, it has nothing to do with them. Okay, so condemn Japanese straight men. All right, just condemn them. Let's do that. That's close enough. That'll work. And that's what they did. And it's so annoying that found its way in there, and it is because of the American investment. I promise you, if you caught up with anybody to do with the Black Sun production, they will tell you one day some American, Rahm Emanuel or somebody from Amazon walked in and said, "Hey, this isn't browbeating straight men enough. All right, we need to make sure that this traditionalism that's being showcased in this is upended at the very last minute and completely spat and shit on." I hate it, you know? Yeah, again, like you go back and forth on what the Moonies are to the Japanese. You know, you can go back and forth on that, but there's no reason to execute a guy. There's just no reason to do that, you know? And like a character assassination while he was still alive, by the way. This is when Black Sun came out. And it's still very annoying to excuse me. It's still very annoying to think about that Amazon couldn't leave it alone, so they had to do something. They had to find some political writer or political director, somebody to come through and take a shot at Abe, you know? The one guy, the one leader Japan's had in the last, like, I don't know, maybe 50 years that has sat and said, you know, Japan's okay. Japan's a pretty cool place. Japan has pretty cool people. We should do more to say that to Japanese people. What a revolutionary idea. You know, here comes Trump doing the same thing. They become best friends. How about that? Well, Black Sun came through and said, well, poo-poo on that. Japanese people suck, in fact. And that's... I have to blame the Amazon investment on that one. There's no other explanation for it, because I just can't imagine a Japanese domestic company deciding to do that on their own. There's no cause for it, you know? And we want Abe to rest in peace, wherever he is. He came back to deflect that bullet for Trump, and that was enough, right? You know, he used the last of his spirit energy before King Kai called him back for more training, right? But no. Again, like I said, you could say whatever you like about the Moonies, up, down, left, or right, but the Japanese people have their opinion on them, and I try not to upend that or justify or demonize or anything, because I don't understand what it's like to live in Japan under the Moonies. Again, I don't live there. I study the culture as sort of a hobby. It's not something I get paid to do, not something I went to college for. It's just every now and then I pick up a book or read an article or something that explains more about the culture, be it the past culture, current culture, or what's predicted to be the future. It's just one of those things. So I don't know what it's like to live under the Moonies. I don't know if it was good or bad. A lot of people have opinions about it. I don't. I just try to step away and observe that for Abe's job as the leader of Japan, he did his best to say Japan was cool. And I think leaders should do that. Of anyone in the country, I think the leader, the singular guy that everybody turns to, should probably be a fan of the country. It's crazy, right? You know? I don't know. Ishiba's all right. I like him, but he's obsessed with being recognized by Americans. And that's neat and all, but I really want that guy to be like, no, screw you. Japan's the best ever. We have Gundam statues. What have you got? You know, it's one of those things where I appreciate him creating like a golden helmet for Trump, but I understand what that symbolizes. it symbolizes that desire to be seen as cool by Americans. And Abe didn't have to do that. Abe just being like, Japan is badass and cool, and Japan has a cool history. No, we're not going to talk about World War II stuff. By the way, have you had sex today? That's all he had to do. And Americans were like, yeah, coolest guy in Japan, let's go. But Ishiba, he wants to be more subtle about it and I guess appeal to the used car salesman of America. I'm not sure what his fashion sense is, that's for sure. But which is why the last 4 years was trash. He was all about China and Ukraine. Yeah, the previous leader, that guy, he really wanted to be accepted by the Europeans. He really did. Now Ishiba comes through and he wants to be accepted by the Americans. And I'm just tired of it. I don't think a leader should be doing that. America's great and all. I love my nation. We are the greatest nation on earth, but I don't believe in paying tribute to us, if you will. I don't believe in that. I think that kind of reverses the intent of our nation, that we were intended to be the anti-imperial power, and I don't like when Ishiba shows up with a golden helmet for Trump. Do I think that's cool? Do I want Trump to walk around with the helmet? Yeah, I do, but I really didn't want that to come from the prime minister. Had it been like a guy that was like that made these for a living, right? And this company sat out and did this to celebrate the relationship of Japan and the United States because of Trump's efforts to revitalize that. Great, perfectly fine. Ishiba being the guy that brought that there, perfectly fine. But he ordered that from a company in the town he grew up in, and that really weirded me out. That was definitely a paying tribute to the imperial leader move, and I don't know. I don't think that's good for America. U.S. focus now. That sounds bad for Japan. You can under Trump, he wants Japan to be a wall against China and North Korea and Russia, probably, but maybe to a lesser extent. He wants Japan to be that great economic wall. So he wants to bolster them up and make sure that they have a strong attitude about producing, which means they have to be proud of their nation. Which is why Abe was, on board with him 100%, why they were such good friends almost instantly, is because both of them recognized that a proud Japan is a strong Japan. Just as a proud America is a strong America. It's one of those things. Crazy idea, right? People loving their nation makes it strong. It's crazy. Wild idea. Who would have ever thought? Who would have ever thought? Yeah. I meant focused on the US now, and it sounds bad for Japan. Yeah, well, no, it's not so much that. Your phrasing's wrong. It's just where I want to take the conversation sometimes. But you're right, is that, they are focused on the US, which, again, doesn't do Japan any favors. They bought a lot of our debt, and that killed their currency. Believe it or not, the yen is so cheap because they bought so much of our debt. That's what caused the crush of their currency. Is they're just a debt mitigator for the United States. And again, that's way below what the Japanese are truly capable of. Even if they are meant to be in service of the United States, there's way more potential there that can be let loose, not even like harvested, just open the gates, but we're still stuck in the era that, well, if we let those Japanese do what they want, they'll take over the world, even though they gave up that whole concept. Like even now, Ishiba is fighting with the majority of the Japanese people, not just the Japanese Congress, but the prime minister of Japan is in sort of a contest with the people to prove to them that they should have the right to defend themselves. I'm not fucking with you. You can go this over to Google right now. You can run right over to Google right now. Japan does not allow anything more than the Japan Self-Defense Force, which is, kind of an overgrown security team. They're not really a military. They're trying, but they're limited in what they're allowed to express militarily. So even if they are well regulated, at the end of the day, what they're regulated in is a kind of above average police work, a little more aggressive police work, really. Sometimes they get a Navy, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have an Air Force, sometimes they don't. It's one of those situations where, depending on the government in place, Japan may be a country that doesn't care about its defense, or it may take it very seriously. And Ishiba's trying to say, no more. He's following Abe's path of trying to get the country to change its constitution to allow for a full-fledged military. Trump supports this. Trump's administration supports this. As far as I know, Marco Rubio supports this. He's our, foreign Secretary of State, whatever, that guy. And so, when we're talking about this like divide of what Japan's focus should be, Ishiba is working very hard to try and get the Japanese people to agree to defend themselves. And it's another, like, I guess, cultural shift, I guess, that we can probably see play out in their media going forward. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if anime going forward did more to talk about the militarization of Japan. Maybe not directly, but had a more overt conversation about what it means to be a soldier for Japan. Because for many, many decades, this has been portrayed as negative, that the Japanese soldiers of history were misinformed or had maybe the slightly wrong idea of history. And most of the time when they go glorifying the soldiers of Japan, it's before World War II. It's before the reign of Yamato. It's the Meiji era, feudal era, more into the samurai, less to do with guys in planes crashing into boats. And so they do that sometimes, don't get me wrong. It isn't completely blotted out, but Japan doesn't exactly like to acknowledge World War II or their role in conflicts in what we consider the modern era. So it's a difficult conversation for them to have because they've relied on the US and the UN to defend them. That's why Korea is so over-militarized, is we are basically building up a defense for the north end of Japan, as well as Korea at the same time. Arguably, we're the reason why everybody in South Korea lives in Seoul. The US did a lot of nation building with Korea in order to stop the North Korean influence and the communist influence. As a result, now everybody lives in Seoul, and the population of Korea is below replacement rate to a point where it may not recover. It's even worse than Japan there, because everybody lives in Seoul and they can't afford to live life. It makes me really sad to think about what the kids of the future kind of have to look forward to. The Super Sentai series of today try to, like Gozuger in particular, it tries to talk about, put that up on screen so it isn't so random. Gozuger tries to talk about the loser, the guy that's left behind in society. The girl that doesn't quite fit in because of whatever reason. It's not necessarily nefarious. It could just be a divergent interest pool that doesn't put her in line with the majority of girls in her age group, And Gozuger is trying to lean into that because this is a growing identity in Japan. You have the hikikomori, who are, I believe, almost 6 million strong now in Japan. And these are men who have not left the 4 square walls of their apartment in over 6 months. That's how the Japanese government defines them. And what I mean is these guys quite literally do not go outside. Hikikomori is someone who is a shut-in. That it means quite literally to go within, to go inside, to go within yourself. And so that necessarily isn't informing Super Sentai, but it is also informing Japanese culture. A lot of men have checked out of the dating market, of the marriage market, trying to rise above their current position in life. They're trying to hold on to their current position in life. They're not focused on forward momentum. And Gozuger is kind of talking about that, where the heroes are not necessarily motivated through a righteous sense of self-gain, but rather a wish to be granted, to take all the hard work of that change, of that chase for glory away and shortcut it. And again, this is an attitude that's growing in Japan. For us, if you're a millennial out there or a late Gen Xer, our age group in Japan is not necessarily known as the millennials. They're known as the forgotten generation. The housing collapse that happened there robbed a whole generation of Japanese from going to from college into the workforce. What happens is every single year, every corporation in Japan starts pulling talent out of the universities. And these kids work their entire lives, their whole lives. I'm talking about from kindergarten all the way up through university to get a job at these specific companies. It's really a lifelong ambition to get hired there. And what happened in 2008 was, this is when I graduated, was in 2008. What happened when the housing crisis hit, those corporations froze that hiring. This had never been done since the practice began. And so a whole generation of Japanese youth were completely tossed to the skids. They can't get these jobs because, again, if the corporation goes and seeks outside of that, they're going to miss the new talent from the university. So they can't afford to invest in people who didn't make the cut. And even though they would have made it, because of the hiring freeze, they did not make it, irregardless of their talent, skill, and dedication. So you have a whole generation that's completely disillusioned with what happened. And they went and had kids. And so those kids saw their parents suffering, saw their inability to change their lives, and has now grown up with that mentality being the norm. They don't want to have children because it's too difficult. Not necessarily that it's too expensive, because again, if you want to have children, you can make it happen. They don't necessarily need the newest, bestest things. But these kids have witnessed the struggle that their parents went through and don't want to repeat that on their children. And that's the poison, right, that Gozuger is trying to be the antidote to by presenting all of these loser characters that are trying to go from zero to hero in a single move. Okay? All of them have the ambition of having a single wish granted that changes their life. Sort of like how Kamen Rider Geats was about that. You competed in the Grand Prix, then you could change reality to your whim. You know, right down to the fundamentals of it. You know, however, if you wanted the sky to be purple, that was possible. If you wanted flying whales to attack people, that happened. You know, that kind of thing. And that kind of thing. But Gozuger, again, is trying to hyper-focus on the loser this time. This is the big angle that they're going with, is that the heroes are not people who have any business being role models. They're not aspirational heroes. This is one of few times in Sentai where they choose to create heroes that are not people that start out as people you should not be modeling yourself after, but become people who are role models over their experiences and the lesson they learned, pursuing a self-centered goal, only to discover a more society-serving goal is much more fulfilling for them. This is a big lesson for Japanese youth right now. And this can go from like 5 years old all the way up to 30 over there. Because again, that whole age group had, 40 really, if you get into the forgotten generation. This speaks to that whole swath of people that saw the Japanese miracle die in front of them. Collapse into their lap, you know, most dramatic style possible, just burn away in an instant. And so even the kids recognize that opportunity isn't there for them. And so Gozuger's stepping in and saying, look at all these people that want to change their life in a single motion. They just want to wish to make all of the bad things in their lives to go away. And now they're going to learn a lesson that that's not good. That's the show will say that that's possible, but you know as well as I do, the eventual end of it is going to be the heroes learning that a single motion to change your life is wrong. And the heroes will be shown as like having subtle changes over the 50 episode run of how they conduct themselves. And again, maybe a good message to bring to the American youth, but it would be very difficult to communicate because we don't acknowledge the struggle. We make memes about it. It's funny to talk about, but we don't out and out try to sit down and Francis Ford Coppola express this. We don't out and out try to really connect with the problem, because if we did, then we have to acknowledge that there's not an easy solution. We do that, we lose votes, we lose consumers, blah, blah, blah. We have to tell everybody everything's fine, wonderful all the time, and they're crazy if they think otherwise. Meanwhile, here's Gozuger that says, there's some guys that are kind of like your parents. They didn't really get a chance in life. They're trying to make it. It's not going so great. And now they've got a shot to make their dreams come true in one single motion. What will they do? What would you do? I think it's clever. I think it's smart, and I think it takes the temperature of how I think a lot of youth in the world feel. A lot of people under the age of 40 really feel trapped, really feel like they need one single wish that could change everything. If they had one thing that let them take off, they could just go forever. They just needed one single change, one turn of the dial, and it'll change everything. So I think it's a really fun and interesting concept for young people around the world. We'll have to see if it catches on in that the US gets an idea based out of this because, it's a bit of what Mr. Beast plays into. That belief that if I had $1 million, my life would be completely different. And what do you know? It really isn't. You just have more bills and more stuff to clean up or take care of, We'll have to wait and see. I don't know. But uh, watch a ton of Korean media these days, but that doesn't really tell me anything about the people so much. Well, it should. It should though. Is that like very much how American media is a sample of the current time of the current zeitgeist? So too is Korean media, Japanese media, Chinese media, all of it. It has to appeal to people. And in order to do that, you have to appeal to something that they relate to. And the easiest way to do that is to take the temperature of the current culture and try to build something out of what either is the most popular thing in the zeitgeist or something that speaks to most of the people participating in that particular end of the culture pool. The reboots that come out here in the US, they're meant to appeal to the boomers and Gen X because they had the most money. You're going to see this pivot into anime and video games now because the corporations are going to pursue millennials, Zoomers, and alphas more than Gen X because Gen X is a tiny generation versus the millennials and Zoomers and alphas pooled together. Gen X's interests are also divergent because they were not infected by the Asian invasion. The year 2000 brought in a lot of anime, a lot of J-pop, a lot of Japanese influence, whereas the 80s had a lot of Japanese technology come through. And so we had like the full-on cultural taste testing from Japan, which is the sample platter, which was Toonami. Of course, Toonami inspired so many other ones. By the time I was 20 years old, the majority of entertainment that I could casually enjoy through Cartoon Network, Sci-Fi, G4 was dominated by Japanese influence. And so when you go and you take a look at what's going on in Korea, it's the same thing, is that Best Korea, which is South Korea, Best Korea is putting out media that is like, Korean media right now is trying to tiptoe around the societal unrest that's going on in the country. People know there's something wrong, that something needs to be done, that China is getting too close, that China is building up too much influence around the world, and especially in the region that they're in, there's too much pollution from China. And so a lot of the Korean media deals with gangsters. It deals with people who are the hero is either like a lackadaisical kind of offish, oafish, out of shape cop guy, or he's very committed, very driven, very RoboCop like in that he's going to get the guy no matter how it happens. There's very few gray area characters that are sort of like Columbo, that are sort of casually driven to solve mysteries. Charles Brosnan's style of hero is probably closer to what Korean crime drama heroes are today. They're grizzled, middle-aged men who take every advantage they can to get the criminal, whether it's legal or not. Again, this is a reflection of just how uncomfortable it is to have over 50% of your population concentrated into one city. So crime drama is kind of ruling over there right now because people, again, are seeing a lot of societal unrest where folks are piled on top of each other by the millions over there. I'm not kidding you when I say I think it's over 50% of the South Korean population live in Seoul now. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Japan spared itself that by having several cities that absorb most of the population. But even so, the countryside's completely desolate. That's why you don't see entertainment from Japan that does much about the countryside. There's that anime about old people who, the grandpa and grandma being young people again, and they're on their farm. And there's media exploring the heritage of Japan's farms. There's media that shows the farmers are still farming in Japan, but largely there's not a lot of like stories that enshrine the experience of the farmer, the country living, that kind of thing anymore. Because again, that's not how you communicate with modern Japanese. They don't really have an attachment to the countryside anymore, like their grandparents and parents did, who did move into the city seeking opportunity from those country areas. This is sort of like a distant thing that's in a photo book to them, similar to how the Koreans feel about it. It's why a lot of their media, the Asian media, has been so city focused for like 30 years now. Because again, most of their populations drained into those city places seeking opportunity. Another thing that's part of Gozuger is that a lot of the fights and conflicts that they're having are taking place in this urban zone, as opposed to the heroes having to go all over the country in order to meet these different heroes the way Street Fighter did, right? The Street Fighter had to travel all over the world to meet these different fighters, whereas Gozuger is presenting that no, everybody who wants to beat ass to win a wish here, they're all in the city. They're all right here, ready to fight you. One of them's the prime minister. That's great. I really like the prime minister character in Gozuger. Very clever, very interesting character. I would say he was inspired by that House of Cards character that Spacey was playing before he got exposed as an evil pedophile. Allegedly, I guess. Allegedly, maybe. Yep. Squid Games get into a lot of that, a lot of like the societal unrest where like, I don't like where I am, I'm trapped, I don't know how to change it, that kind of thing. Again, around the world, most youth are experiencing this, but particularly in Korea, this is a very big problem because, like, again, everybody lives in the city. It was already bad back in 05, the first tour of South Korea. 2012, it felt like you could breathe there. Can't imagine now. Seoul is super dense. Again, like over 50% of South Koreans live in Seoul. They tried to build a different city, but because the corporations didn't move there, the people didn't. Samsung, quite literally, is a cyberpunk dystopian, iron-fisted leader in South Korea right now. Samsung is everything. Samsung even owns funeral homes. Okay, just kind of they own the hospital where your child's born. They own the funeral they own the funeral home where your child wishes you goodbye for the last time. Okay, I can't imagine owning people from cradle to grave like that, but that's what happens when you have 50% of your population living in a city. The corporations fill the gap of what would be a mom and pop funeral home, I guess. Funeral home. City sickness, as they'd call it in a historical context. What most of this is reminding me of. Yeah, well, it is. It's the urbanization of humanity has been one of the greatest detriments to the human experience. Stagnation of creativity is born out of this. Stagnation of innovation is born out of this. And the stagnation of unity. What makes humans want to create unity among each other is that we're different, right? The more different we are, a lot of the times we want to bridge that gap and learn about each other, sort of like how we are in the West being fascinated by what goes on in Japan, and likewise, Japan being fascinated about what goes on in the West. This is good. But when you pile everybody together, that difference of idea, that cultural difference can't exist. Everyone's the same. So then you start looking for differences in order to assign yourself a separate identity. And in a city, that becomes very, very difficult. And thus, everybody becomes your competitor to create an identity for yourself. It's one of those things where if you watch enough of like the early 90s, late 80s anime and Japanese movies, Japanese television, sitcoms, that sort of stuff, it is full display. They talk about it. How living in the city, you lose your identity. You lose who you are. You become another cog in the machine. And then one day you wake up and you want to go postal because so many years have been wasted just punching a time card and making sure that you didn't fart on the subway or else you'd inconvenience other people. And that's ultimately what ends up kind of destroying us as a human, as a human species, is this desire to to culminate into one area. And it's very bad for us to do that. It's good to have people out on the farm, good to have people in a city, sure. Good to have people in a neighborhood, good to have people up on a mountain, good to have people down by the beach. They need to be different places. It's what helps, humanity grow and change and become different and become better. Not because different people have different ideas, but because the concert of ideas produce new ideas. This was the original intent of the UN. It wasn't necessarily supposed to be a Security Council alone to get together and screw with everybody. It wasn't meant to get together and put an end to humanity, if you will. But the UN was meant to pool the differences in our human experiences into better solutions. Because a man from Africa and a man from Arizona may share some similarities. They may have some things to talk about. A man from Texas and a man from Sweden may have some things to talk about. They may come to solutions that they would not have at home. But because they live so differently, being so far apart from one another, those solutions can be born. Meanwhile, you go piling 50% of your national population into a city, guess what? They're all going to like the same music. They're all going to like the same movies. They're all going to like the same cars. They're all going to like the same cell phone company. They don't have a choice. But again, this is another thing that's talked about in Gozuger, as I just pointed out. Everybody who wants to fight to compete for this wish, this #1 status in Gozuger, all exist in this city, all exist in this one country. They may come here from other countries, but the heroes are not traveling around, which again demonstrates the limited nature of how people on the ground, the youth in Japan, talking about maybe kids, but mainly probably the 16 to 25-year-old demographic, really feel about their opportunity in Japan. The city chokes them out, but they don't have any other option. It's not like going into the country is going to help them. Working remotely in Japan slows down your ability because you have to impress the boss. Watch any documentary about being a Japanese businessman. You have to go drinking with your boss until the wee hours of the morning almost every night. It's really not a joke. These guys have to go out and drink with their boss. Every single new contract constitutes a new party. The boss feels the compulsion to celebrate with his people so they feel like they're part of the victory. Then the people feel the compulsion to celebrate with their boss so that they have an opportunity to move up the ladder. And that's just one thing. That's just one single thing that you have to be present for if you want to climb the ladder. So you can't do remote work. You can't live outside of the city. You remember this one. You ever wondered why in anime and a lot of Japanese media, dad's not there? He's not dead. He's not divorced. He's just not around. Well, it's because most Japanese men live in dormitories. Married Japanese men live in dormitories. I'm not even kidding. Go and look up this statistic. The majority of working male Japanese live in male-only dormitories, no mixed sex. They live in male-only dormitories, and they go there for like 6 weeks at a time. Then they go home. They take a train home. Could be on the other side of the city, but because that commute is such a pain in the ass, they live in a dormitory with other guys. One of the stories that brought my attention to this was a wife who had become frustrated with her husband seeking out adult entertainment while he was living at a dormitory with his friends. And so she taught herself how to draw and produced a adult entertainment manga for him that featured herself and him doing these things that she thought that would be exciting to him. And sure enough, it was. It became a hit around the country, in fact. A lot of wives started taking up drawing adult entertainment for their husbands because, again, they're not going to come home. They have to stay in these dormitories for cost reasons, time reasons, commitment reasons in some cases. And that's what ends up depriving the father from being at home. And of course, the Japanese, boy youth grow up with this expectation of, I'll have a nice wife, but I'll see her every 6 weeks. And it's sad, but that's what they're kind of, dealing with. And again, you see this in Gozuger, the little boy who is at the cafe apartment building that the Red Ranger lives at. That little boy doesn't have a father. There's no father present, but it's not expressed that he's dead. There's no conversation about where the father is. So it's assumed that he's at work, busy doing his thing, Wasn't expecting to get this deep. Well, that's what happens is I get drilled in on a topic and I like to talk about it. I I live in Maine, so like not a lot of people give a damn about Japan around here. It's too far away. You know, they're just not that invested in it. They want to care about Boston. They want to care about Florida. They want to care about England, blah, blah, blah. Things that I'm just not. It's great. Boston's important. Florida's nice. England's whatever. But I'm not. I'm more engaged with what's going on in the Orient, if you will. And so, yeah, when I'm alone, I want to drill into it. I want to talk about it because aside from Spencer and Nerdigan, she's busy with her own information collection. I don't really talk about Japanese concepts very much. So it is interesting and fun to have a conversation with the chat about it because, to be completely honest, we need to start thinking about how Japan's solving their problems because their problems are going to be our problems very quickly. If you're not paying attention, men are checking out of day-to-day life. That's what happened in Japan, and what contributed to the birth decline is that as the manosphere guys, those trusted shepherds of masculinity, as they call it, the return on investment is very low right now for American men. So to become married, to start a life, to seek that kind of companionship is rapidly evolving into something you seek online or out of an AI. Anime characters, we see waifus becoming much more popular in the West as men fixate on fictional women. And again, I'm not poo-pooing anybody. What are you supposed to do? If they don't have an OnlyFans, they're probably some kind of drug addict. And then inversely, if you're a woman trying to find a man, he's probably some OnlyFans addicted guy. And you end up finding guys that have a completely wrong interpretation of how relationships work because they've only observed it through video games or through anime or through movies. They didn't have a father in the home to role model to them. I think it's 1 in every 4 children in America is born to a home without a father being present. Either he's dead, divorced, out of the picture completely, however it is. 1 in 4. So that's influencing our media. Clearly, you take a look at what's going on, and we're just simply not trying to understand how the Japanese are dealing with this. And we need to. We need to have conversations like this. We need to analyze how their media is dealing with depopulation, what they're doing to combat it, and what they're doing to accept the tragedy in the short term, the next 20 years, that they have to hold their breath through in the hopes that they can build back a population that can support the current economy, not even the one that was at its heyday. Okay? That's an incredibly big task, and we need to be talking about it too. Where I live, here in Maine, right here, 60% of the population is boomers. That's people over 65. In the next 8 years, those won't be around. And they're still working, by the way. They're still pulling their weight around here. So when they leave, there simply aren't enough bodies. There aren't enough bodies to put into the positions these people are dying out of. And this is what's happening in Japan. And this isn't just Maine. Go anywhere in the United States, this is what's happening. The majority population is dying off due to old age. We're just not talking about it. We don't want to face it the way the Japanese have to because it's more prevalent on their day-to-day lives than it is for us. But it will be very soon. And we are not having these conversations. We are not trying to reach out to youth that are left behind to get them re-involved in an economy that's limping along, to get them re-involved in a culture that's become so corporatized that we don't really even know what the fuck an American really is. Ask yourself, is there a single sentence anymore that can define what an American is? No, there isn't. It's like an entire goddamn TED Talk just to introduce to you what a burger-loving, NASCAR-loving, American flag-waving American really is. Very, 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 very scary that we just completely ignore that Korea and Japan are in the exact same position we are, and they're doing much more about it. It's very alarming. Been taken advantage every time, many times, to want to seek a partner now, if you will. I completely understand that. I tell everybody that if you're looking, it's probably the bad decision to be looking. You're not going to meet anybody when you're looking because it's like going to the grocery store when you're hungry. You're going to pick up anything off the shelf. It's sad. It's confusing. It's very difficult to go through life and say, no, I don't want to approach that cute girl over there. It's just going to go the same way it always has when I approach that cute girl. It's very difficult, absolutely difficult to tell yourself that, to shoot yourself down before taking the risk, right? But on the inverse of that, when you aren't telling yourself that, when you are not even engaging in that thought process, that person will either connect with you or you'll make a friend that evolves into something else. It's how your mom and dad met. It's how grandpa and grandma met. It's how every other human being has met over time. We have overcomplicated it with our stupid status symbols now. Again, another product of corporatizing the human experience. This happened in Japan. Status symbols in Japan led to men chasing objects over women in order to impress women, and women fell out of the market, seeking their own wealth, personal symbols of independence. Ta-da! Ta-da! So again, we're kind of circling the same problems as the Japanese and Koreans, but we refuse to ignore, rather we ignore what it is and refuse to explain it out and out. And again, I can't blame you. There have been a lot of very, very poor partners out there. So I cannot blame you for wanting to disengage with that completely. All I say is that just kind of remind yourself occasionally that maybe someday it'll be different, but for today it's not. You know, I'm not telling you how to live your life. I just think it would be awful that someone with a personality like yours didn't find someone to at least compliment it. You know, I think that would be sad that you didn't have your Donna Noble to the doctor, if you will. It's just someone that compliments you well. What I've learned from you is that you're definitely a person that should find somebody that, you know, not should as in it's your job to find it, but it would be good for the world if someone complimented you in the right way. So I don't know who that is. I don't know if that guy even exists right now. That guy could be in Tahiti, or a girl. I don't know how it works for you. Could be on the moon. Who knows? But if you want to be alone right now, that's fine. Don't worry about it. There's a lot of people that share that sentiment, and they should, as you should. There's good reason to feel that way. But always, just keep that little flame alive, little flicker of the candle that says it might be different someday. But if it's not different today, don't worry. It doesn't have to be different today. It probably shouldn't, believe me. You look out the window and see what's going on. I don't envy anybody who is like trying to hold a relationship together right now in all of the turmoil of the world. I really don't envy them. Please don't get us crossed with what we on about. We get you. We're just thinking about long-term health is all. We're talking about the nation state of health as health of our local communities. Absolutely. You know, knowing the limitations of your community is good too, and working to build it up. But you know, we are, I guess, self-focused creatures as humans. We should be anyway. And so, you know, having your own interests apart from that's important is what I'm trying to get at. And that's your questions, Sakuramita. I'm not sure. I thought we talked about the AI and whatnot. I'm sorry. I did. My apologies. Is there another one? Your questions. My apologies. Just trying to find out what we're talking about here. I didn't see your questions. I only saw what you had posted about what was going on with the franchise. My apologies. Oh well. But we've been live here about 2.5 hours, and I'm drifting around into dear cider territory. You know, I used to do that. I used to answer dating questions that were sent through email. So don't need to be getting that back into that one too deeply here on Power Rangers Reignition, the future of the Power Rangers franchise. That certainly has nothing to do with it. But to kind of end cap that conversation, a lot of people feel the way you do. Don't feel alone, and that you want to be alone. A lot of people want to be alone right now. And maybe that'll change. Maybe it won't. I hope it does, but maybe it won't. That's all. Asked about Hasbro breaking up. Hold on, let me see. Where did that get? Sorry, got swallowed up in the Japanification conversation. Must have been a while ago. Sorry about that. I don't think Hasbro is going to let go of the franchise. Power Rangers, I don't think so. Um, there's no really a reason for them to do that. They don't. They've farmed it out to Playmates, so they're not really in charge of. Well, you know what they are. They're approving what's happening over there, but they're not stuck with the day-to-day management of the franchise anymore. So I don't think that they're gonna really be incentivized to part with it. Moreover, I think they're just going to be incentivized to continue focusing on the child angle of it as a sort of role play brand, and maybe put out a movie. But I'm still not confident that the movie will happen. There's just too much at play. Hasbro went into DEI territory. Project Veritas exposed them sometime in 2018, 2017, somewhere around there, for fully embracing critical race theory. And it was a black employee that brought this to James O'Keefe's attention. That was the craziest part of it all. But he was explaining that from top to bottom, every part of Hasbro had embraced the idea that white straight men were bad. And that had to be addressed immediately. And now when you go trying to package that up to a movie studio who has just recently been told by the government that DEI projects are not okay anymore. Corporations won't be receiving any help on that front, and it should be discouraged entirely. You see Disney starting to drop this stuff. You see BlackRock, the great evil, the Luther Corp of our world, if you will. BlackRock stepping up and saying, we're done with DEI too. So again, that I think is what causes the hiccup and grind between Paramount and Hasbro. Do I think they're going to break up? You know, between Paramount and Hasbro, I do, because Paramount, like I just said, they're going to want to migrate out of the DEI muck, and Hasbro has fully 100% committed to it. Chris Cox is 1000% behind this effort, so I'm going to guess that they will break up from Paramount, because Paramount won't be able to go down that road, and Hasbro's not going to give it up. And so, in the end, it's for the better, because whatever Paramount's working on right now is not going to be the Power Rangers that are needed. Like we were just talking about, they're going to miss that completely and just drive right into Mighty Morphin again to try and get that same audience activated. In reality, we're not really interested in that. You got people out there that love Mighty Morphin and they'll tune in for it all the time, but the majority of people who engage in this transforming hero genre, the guys wearing helmets to save the day, the people that engage in that want an aspirational hero story, not a confirmation bias spread out over 120 minutes. Can you really tell me that the 2017 Power Rangers wasn't a confirmation bias, that wasn't just trying to set out and tell you everything sucks and really don't take it seriously and be an irreverent millennial that's semi-ironically saving the day? Right? There's no aspirational quality to that whatsoever. It just confirms your bias that you just don't take anything seriously, and you'll get through it just fine. So yeah, I think Paramount will break up with them. Absolutely. Because again, that Lionsgate, I think, was behind or was it Paramount? It was behind the last Transformers Rise of the Beasts. And that one did terribly. And again, that was another Hasbro helmed thing where like they were in charge of approving what happened in that movie. And there you go. A lot of outreach, a lot of bad ideas came through. And I'm not sure that Paramount wants to put themselves in that position again. So like I said, whatever they're working on is meant to cash in on MMPR and most likely have nothing to do with what people who engage in this fandom are actually interested in. Bowsette says, I don't think any of these companies are going to abandon DEI. They will all be just like Microsoft, rename it and move people around and say they've changed. Please give us money now. You know, you got a point on that one, because they already kind of have. But with BlackRock jumping out of the outward expression of it, investors are going to jump out of it in a hurry. A lot of what happens in the investment market is big fish stuff. So when the big guys make a move, like Nancy Pelosi. When the big guys make a move, thousands and thousands of millionaires and very small end billionaires will jump in that same direction and hold the line for as long as the big companies do, because they assume the big company has access to information they do not, or is creating the information that they do not. And so when BlackRock steps away from this, it'll signal to investors that do not get the pamphlet that says what the new DEI is to jump out of DEI. Then they've got to recreate all of the DEI stuff and all of the DEI argument with brand new language in order to sell it to those investors that follow them around everywhere. So again, for the time, I think for the next 2 years at least, we're going to get a lot of investment in stuff that probably would have been more at home in the 90s, a bit more aggressive, early 2000s attitudes, maybe a bit less of the, probably a lot less of the racism and stuff like that, due to the government not being allowed to invest in this stuff anymore. But also because BlackRock and whatnot will not be there to provide that guiding language, that guiding enforcement. They'll be too busy reforming the marketing campaign for that. Bridge was an option, but Bridge is also popularly identified as DEI Junior. So I'm not sure that DEI Junior is going to, that Bridge is going to survive this either. We're going to have a whole new set of language that they're going to roll out from the colleges again, and then BlackRock will start enforcing it across every entertainment platform possible, and we'll do it all over again. But again, that's going to take some time. You got to raise people back up on this stuff. And in the meantime, free investment, the proper kind of market adjustment, will be taking place, and probably for the next 18 months. But we do have Pepsi Man here. Says at this point, just let PR die. Toei gains back full control, and they can just sub-dub themselves like Tsubara does with Ultraman. I don't see a problem with that. Really, I think Power Rangers relies on Super Sentai for good reason, because it flatly on its end, as demonstrated, doesn't have ideas for this franchise on its own. It definitely needs the Super Sentai angle to give it life, if you will. I believe Toei already has all of the ownership of it. Not like Power Rangers, but like all of their footage. I don't really think, since the breakup, like that official Hasbro ending the contract with them, I don't think that they have any legal overlap anymore. Like Hasbro owns all the stuff that's marked Power Rangers, and Toei owns all the stuff that's marked Super Sentai. So even though that footage overlaps because they use the same footage, the American version reused the footage from Japan, it's labeled trademark-wise as American. And the Super Sentai footage, while featuring the same characters, doing some of the same things, can still exist separately due to how the U.S. trademark and copyright laws work in the form of grandfathering. So they don't have outside of the Asian. Okay, so that would explain why they're using Shout Factory, I guess, then. Because I just thought that Shout Factory was the one trying to prove to Toei that there's a market over here for this. But maybe that's what it is that they don't have a clear line to distribute this stuff under the Toei label, so they go through Shout Factory, maybe? Which is why Sentai is a music on Spotify and Apple, but can't use any actual Sentai suits on the covers. Oh, okay. So because Power Rangers controls the brand recognition of Man in Helmet as far as those suits go, I wonder if Hasbro's even aware that this is being done. It's another fun thing about licensing, is that sometimes the corporations that hold the licensing aren't even aware that these type of limitations are out there. It's just part of the package that they signed on in order to get the damn franchise going. So I wonder if they're even aware that this stuff is happening. But yeah, again, it's copyright, brand recognition. We have a lot of laws in the United States that protect people's intellectual property, and a lot of the time it's unnecessary. Like in this case, it's another unnecessary thing. The Super Sentai music either isn't related to the Power Rangers brand at all, because most of the time they rescore the entire the entire Super Sentai footage. They mute it and redo everything most of the time. Most of the time. There are a couple. I think Operation Overdrive had like some full audio from a couple of fights, but they separated out the character voices from Japan and added in the American voices. I think that's the one that did it. I'm not sure, but again, it's one of those things where if it can be screwed with, the American courts are going to do that. Shout releases Sentai. The Shout releases Sentai stopped for a while when the licensing switched to Hasbro, and the rights got shuffled around again. Okay, so Hasbro ends up screwing around with these. It's funny that they have anything to say about Jetman, anything to say about the stuff that is pre-existing Zero Ranger. Even Die Ranger shouldn't have any. Well, no, the White Ranger. That's right, he's in it. So, it's really strange. We'll have to wait and find out as it goes forward, as Power Rangers sort of realigns itself as a children's brand, if they're going to continue trying to push this legacy control or not, if they're going to just let the Sentai stuff go. It's very bizarre. Very bizarre. I'm sure Disney's involved in this stuff too, this kind of, not this exact case, but involved in this kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, so again, they probably aren't even aware that Shout Factory has these kinds of problems. I'd be interested to know if they like grabbed like Q Ranger or no, not Ninja, Tokuger, the one with the trains. If they grabbed that and brought that over, if Hasbro would have any say in it, because those series don't use anything that was ever used in a Power Ranger production, and they're newer. So it's very. I wonder if how that would happen. Too many laws here. And Nintendo, yeah, Nintendo's another one. We'll be talking about that one next week. I'm still gathering information about all the stuff that they're getting up to with their patent applications. Looks like they're trying to take Pocket Pal to court again over more stuff. So that's great. You got to love protracted legal disagreements. Trump taught us all about those. The initial deal between Saban and Toei, the one from the 90s, was in Super Sentai's favor. Excuse me, in Saban's favor. My apologies. But if memory serves, they got more favorable rights in 2011 when Saban got the rights again. Yeah, Saban was in a much weaker position at that time, and I assure you that Disney exploited every angle that they could when they had hold of it. But Saban definitely was in a much weaker position when he took it, so they probably negotiated for more control. Very strange. Basically, international trademarks and copyrights. And again, it's another thing that helps keep us honest, I guess, is that each nation has control of the intellectual property generated there. So, that's nice, I guess. It keeps us from just wholesale ripping things off. But at the same time, it makes for a messy thing when you try to show off that media commercially here in the US. Again, that could be another, like, in sort of an inertial effect, if you will, forgive the pun. It could be an inertial effect that we don't have Kamen Rider because of these unseen licensing hiccups between all this legacy law of trademark and copyright surrounding what a guy in rainbow colored spandex can do on camera. It's bizarre, really bizarre. Pepsi Man says, one of the big changes was that Saban, now Hasbro, gets rights to all Sentai, not just the ones. Son of a bitch. Can you imagine that? Like, we want all control of this stuff, but we're not going to use any of it. No wonder they ended that contract. I can't imagine trying to pay Toei for all that when you're literally generating your own shitty suits. When used for the right reason, copyright are a good thing. Nintendo aren't using them right. They are only crying now because Power World got popular. If it wasn't making money, they wouldn't care. It's true. It's true. They were fine with it up until it started like invading their market space, which again, maybe they weren't okay with it when it was first getting started, but the legal argument wasn't that strong. So they had to wait for it to become popular to get the legal argument together that they were threatening their brand to do this. And they started off with the spherical capture device, and probably going to move on to the general appearance of the monsters too. I don't know what this means for things that spun out of Pokemon. If they're going to try and go after them as well, I'm not sure. Nintendo seems oddly desperate about this. And you'd think where Pokemon's the biggest franchise in human history, biggest fictional enterprise in history, you'd think that they'd kind of be okay with people nipping at their heels like Power World, but I don't know. I'm not looking at their marketing numbers. Maybe Pal World was getting close to interfering with Pokemon's bottom line. Maybe. I'm not really sure. Yeah, it is. It's super scummy behavior. It is. Their desperation is clear sign they are wrong. Yeah, and again, like it's very strange. The car companies went through this in the 70s when they started getting after each other about certain body lines here in the US and stuff like that. That's why in the 80s a lot of the cars just embraced that stupid European box look because you couldn't take anybody to court over it. It was all hard angles. What are you gonna do? Sue a guy over the umpteenth thousandth square headlight? You know, and that again, it wasn't chiefly what drove that, but it contributed to a lot of it was just like, oh, I dare you to be mad at me about all these corners we're putting on these cars now. Pocket Pair didn't pay a licensing fee. They didn't ask nicely. Nintendo applying for anti-Pal World patents in the US with a whopping 22 out of 23 rejected, but they are fighting. Again, the patent office will protect like vague things. So this tells me that they're trying to go after just the concept of Pal World in general, the monster capture function. But they can make an argument. We have seen very dumb things happen in copyright. So they're definitely capable of making a trademark law. They are definitely capable of making a case to obliterate Pal World here. And all these rejections are just reword it, run it back through the legal team to reword it and we'll submit it again. So that 22 out of 23 will be 21 out of 23, then 20, then 19, then 18. And slowly they'll build their case because again, they have the money. They have the fuck you money. So they'll just do it. Bowsette says, I don't even like Pal World that much, especially since the devs stood with Concord and their developers. I will never play Concord again because of that. Well, and again, when you get to this corporate mumbo jumbo stuff, we have to remember they're all the same. As much as we want to say that this one's better than that one, or this one's outside of the country because it's different. These guys in China are better because they're not. They're all cut from the same cloth in that they have to produce in order to impress an investor of some sort. For the ones in China, it's the CCP. For over here in the West, it's BlackRock, Vanguard, Main Street, and Tencent, which is sort of the CCP still. But again, you get to a certain level, it's not about the consumer anymore. It's not about the game. It's not about anything you originally got into the whole process for. It's now about that pretty little bottom line and making sure that nothing at all goes wrong with it. So you jump in on these virtue signal things in order to send the message that you're with all of these people that look like Muncha Luncha, And you got to make sure you let them know, because if they don't know, wow, they might get the wrong idea that they can't play Pal World because they don't explicitly have an invitation to do so. It's a very bizarre mentality to have, but that's where these corporations go now. All of them. You can see all good and bad. They all do it. They all lean into that. Bowsette says it's an open market. Any game developer should have a chance to get a piece of the pie. Grok has leveled the playing field on that. Now it is quite literally on the publishers and distribution platforms like Steam to allow what gets produced. We see Yasuke Simulator. I had a great time playing Yasuke Simulator. Does it insult the Japanese? In a joke through Japan, through making fun of Japan through Assassin's Creed. Yes, it absolutely should be offensive to Japanese people because there is a black man wearing an iParty samurai costume gunning down Japanese men. All right? I'm not going to lie. That game is not meant to massage any Japanese egos whatsoever. It is meant to make fun of the concepts and idiocy that Assassin's Creed Shadows has delivered to the world. And it's not even out. Both games aren't even out yet. But Assassin's Creed Shadows will outsell, outperform, and out-hype Yasuke Simulator. But you and I both know 10 years from now, people will still be playing Yasuke Simulator on and off, but they will not be playing Assassin's Creed Shadows. And that's at the end of the game, at the end of the day, that's what these AAA game guys, these quadruple A game guys, these people that are so proud of these immersive worlds that they build are up against, is that some guy with some basic Unity assets can put together a 7-minute demo that completely steals the wind out of your 100-hour assassin RPG assassin simulator game. That's the world you live in right now. And because they're both faced with the same advertising limitations, I talk about this all the time, but here it is. We talked about it last night. Advertisers have the same limitations that indies do now. So, like, because of ad blockers, Disney is stuck with the same advertising limitations that bounding into comics is. So, Yasuke Simulator isn't so much hamstrung by Assassin's Creed Shadows having the ability to advertise wider. It's hamstrung over the fact that people have a name recognition on Assassin's Creed Shadows. That's all. But who knows? You know, I don't think that it's going to. I don't think that the gaming market is going to evolve as quickly as we want it to. It makes me very sad to say this, but I do believe that China is going to swallow entertainment for the next 8 years to 10 years. Might be 2035 before the West finally gets its grip on cultural control back. But it's going to be China that dominates it, either Chinese sponsored media or direct Chinese media that does it, because they've decided that they're not going to. Either they paid for the DEI stuff to be embraced through Tencent, or they're just straight up decided to be insulted by the stuff in the West all of a sudden, and they're producing media that is pretty much 100% counter to what the West is producing. You see this with Marvel Rivals. You see this with Mecha Break. What was the other one? Wukong, Black Myth Wukong that came through. You see these games that come through that completely divorce themselves of the Western marketing principles at their core, and they have absolutely obliterated the market as they've approached it. I don't think American corporations can change fast enough to compete with that in the next 10 years. It makes me very sad, very, very sad to admit that, because I don't want China to have control of anything. Seriously, the CCP having control of China bothers me, okay? I really don't want to see this happen, but it is the price, the toll, if you will, of I would say 15 years, I guess, of this hardline SJW stuff. It's the price to be paid. That for 10 years, our corporations, our media generation is going to just be falling all over itself, trying to either catch up, compete, or match what the Chinese media companies are able to produce. And it annoys me that I'm going to be seeing young fellas running around with Chinese shit on their shirts, and, you know, all this cultural worship for the CCP will come through with it. And we'll have to put up with that, because that's how it goes. We exported our politics to China back in the day, and now it's their turn to do it to us, because we took our foot off the pedal and decided to invest ourselves in which bathroom to use, as opposed to anything that actually mattered to life. So, but as you can tell, I'm running out of steam here. As a solo show, I'm not so good because I burn out of energy pretty quick. So we made it here to about the 3-hour mark. And so I appreciate you coming along. I hope you learned some things. I learned some things. And of course, we'll be continuing to talk about the Power Rangers reignition effort, what's going on with Hasbro and their efforts with Paramount. And at the end of the day, I like that phrase, but at the end of the day, it's over for us, for our age group. Power Rangers has migrated into something where it wants to focus on children. So if you want to do the collector stuff, expect the stuff to be built for kids again. It's not built for Bandai collectors. It's not built to be in a glass cage. It's meant to be thrown at a wall and, buried under gravel and, hit with an RC car, that kind of stuff. It's built to be played with, that sort of stuff. So while we are seeing a shift in how Hasbro is allowing Power Rangers to be expressed, the franchise as we know it is gone forever. Maybe it should be. Maybe it should be. Maybe it shouldn't be. I don't know. But at the end of the day, again, I love that phrase. But when it comes down to what we have Super Sentai. Super Sentai thoroughly massages the fandom that was born out of Power Rangers here in the West. So I encourage you to jump over there if you haven't already. Enjoy Super Sentai. We're rolling into episode 3 of Gozuger. Episode 4 comes out Saturday night for Sunday morning in Japan. Comes out Saturday night. By Monday morning, it's usually fan translated, so you can have a brand new episode 4 on Monday of Gozuger, and catch up on the first 3 already. So give it a try it out. As I said, it pitches to people who feel left behind by the world. So if that's you, this is definitely a Sentai that lets you know that you're seen, I guess, or at least there's hope, maybe. I'm not sure. You'll have to let me know what you think about Gozuger the next time we get a chance to talk about it. And until then, though, good luck out there.